Not only a great tour to a person, we've all said how impressed and how much we've enjoyed it. I think we could go through again and we'd still notice more that is happening because there's so much complexity and interest of what's happening in the school. That it's really is a tremendous place, and obviously kids are focused and enjoying school and loving it, and what could be better than that? So thank you for the tour, but even more important, thank you for serving all of your families. And you had something like 600 and something families that were on that were downstairs of members of families, 600 plus that you've served, and so appreciative of that and the work that you've been able to accomplish. And I asked, what are they gonna do as far as awards? Because that wall is full. And he said half of them are already put away. So they just keep rotating through them and adding more, so they will. So welcome, everyone, and we appreciate also being hosted by Beehive Science and Technology Academy. This is really exciting for us, not to just be in a sterile place, but come to a fun place with people and to enjoy the work that you're all doing. So we'll begin first with a Pledge of Allegiance, and Member Cisneros will lead us in that, and we have there. Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And then we're fortunate to have a thought today from Member Pulsifer.
Hey, thank you. So I was thinking about what I could share today, and this thought came to me. As most of you are aware of the tragic automobile accident my granddaughter was involved in a couple of months ago. And there are no questions about the miraculous events that caused her recovery from the needed brain surgery, and she's doing very, very well. So I've been thinking about something that a member of the trauma unit who helped with the Operation Totally following the surgery. He said, this is an example of what happens when everyone, from the paramedics to the surgeon, completes their part of the process exactly as they should. This is such a good example of collaboration and working together for the benefit of everyone. In order to get a clear picture of what transpired, the family has spent some time meeting with and talking to everyone who helped. They spoke to the police officer who was at the scene and who did the investigation. He told them about the assistant fire chief who drove by the accident just as it happened and immediately made the necessary phone calls to get the right people and vehicles to the scene very quickly. The two girls involved in the accident met with the paramedics who quickly removed the girls from the car and assessed their condition, determined the quickest way to get them to the hospital, and provided emergency care on the way to the hospital. They knew the situation was critical and moved very quickly to get the girls to the right hospitals. The family talked to people at the hospital who scanned her body and sent the scans to the trauma unit at Utah Valley Hospital, along with life flighting her. The surgical team told them that they had the surgery room prepared 10 minutes before she arrived, and the surgeon was ready the moment she arrived. Everyone did their jobs effectively during the surgery. People at the accident scene and medical people along the way did not think she would live, or that if she lived, she would have lasting problems. Yes, because everyone along the way did their jobs quickly and skillfully, she has completed all necessary therapies, and no one could tell she has had a problem. Everyone is amazed. I believe there's much we can learn from this experience. We each have important parts to play in the education process of each child. The charter school system we oversee can provide critical, individualized, and needed learning experiences for the education of each child. The quality of that experience depends on how well everyone, from the classroom teacher, the school director, the board of the school, and all the people who work in the school, do their individual jobs. When we all work together and do our own part effectively and skillfully, the child gains the needed education. As members of the state charter board and staff, we provide important framework for individual schools to do their jobs. Each of us need to be carefully review our part in the process to make sure we are collaborating and doing our best. We never know the lifelong effect our efforts will have on a child. I think we saw a little bit of that today. It is easy to forget about how important our work is. I'm happy to be part of this important process and will do my best in the work I'm here to do. We can be a great example of collaboration and working together to accomplish great things.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Really important thoughts for us to think about. Thank you so much. Each person pulling their own weight, right, do their own job. I also member Pulsifer used the term each child.
Yeah.
And we sometimes as educators say, we believe that all children can learn. A much better term is we believe each child can learn, that we individualize to each individual child, that we're helping each one in the way that that individual needs to learn, help that each individual child, not just a group of all children, but each child. I love that.
And I was thinking, again, with this correlation, with the medical situation,
Yeah,
it's each person.
Yeah.
And I think thinking about each child in that same way is really helpful.
thank you. Thank you for that reminder for us and to be focused on that so much. These thoughts are so good. I'm gonna just tune in for thoughts. So that's great. I need them. So thank you all so much. Do we have any public comment today? Not hearing anyone say yes, we do. So I'm suspecting we do not. Okay, let's move then to consent calendar. So that you all have had, I hope have had a chance to review the consent and can look through that. Anyone? I'd be glad to entertain a motion relative. You're welcome to pull any items or just to approve.
Chair, I move that we approve the consent calendar.
All right, a motion to approve the consent calendar. And a second to that motion
Second.
and a second. So a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any discussion about any of the consent? Not seeing any, I'll ask for a vote to support the motion to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'm hearing that that was a unanimous vote, so we've approved the consent. We can do that right now, or you want to?
Well, we kind of, there's two. We'd like to have some thoughts, but we didn't want it to get lost in the business of the vote. So
Oh,
we could, it is your preference. We do have, we definitely have thoughts and some gifts, and we just want to celebrate. But we also would like for you to leave the meeting. We noticed that the vote.
To leave the meeting?
No. Leave.
I know. Is
It
it
is your
okay?
preference, Chair, what you would
Let's
like.
hold it a little bit
I am
and let's
totally okay
do
with-
some of this business. That
Are we
doesn't
okay with
color
that?
anything,
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
if that's right.
I'm fine with that.
All right, then let's, so we're just a little bit ahead, but that will be perfect. So we go to the executive director report. We'll hope that.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm gonna use PowerPoint just to guide some of the updates, both from the board and the committee work, and then also from staff. And so it is just an absolute privilege to be in a school and to be at Beehive today. In talking with staff, we'd like to do this twice a year in the spring, where we come into a school and we see an annual tradition where we take our show on the road. And so it's really a privilege to be here once again. So if you could just turn to the first slide. One of the biggest matters of business for this board is board member replacement and also the chair and vice chair positions and elections. I do know that the chair and vice chair positions and elections is the last agenda item today. That's by design. Our executive committee wanted that to be the last agenda item so that Chair Bowles presides today, and so that vice chair can fulfill her duties as vice chair, which per bylaws says to work through that process. And so if you just look at board member replacement, it's per code that, and this is a reminder and just an update for all of you, is that the Utah State Board of Education has said that they're working hard to come up with the people that they then will make one nomination is our understanding, and that it come out by June 5th meeting. And so they, Chair Hymas and others at the Utah State Board of Education are looped in and actively working on their nomination for this position, or I should say for this replacement to this member. Just as a point of reference again, is that these state charter school board member positions are appointed by the governor, confirmed by the Senate. We don't control those meetings and that timeline. But we've been in touch with the state, and we think that they possibly and possibly will be looking at this in July. And that gives us a really shooting chance for an August ideal replacement, board member replacement. We are looking for ASAP. We think that 7 is the right number, and to have a good quorum at meetings is really important. We don't push that timeline though, we follow their timeline. But we are hopeful that it is no later than September. September is a big meeting for us in that we'll have proposals this September instead of this August. So that's a good reason for that. You'll see then in later on that it should be a simple vote for the vice chair and the chair positions, and we'll handle that later on. If you could go to the next slide, please. Our committees are very active and engaged. If we take a look back to last year around this time, our committees were just kind of re-engaging. Okay, they weren't meeting super regularly. They were doing some work, but and there was not because people were not interested in doing the work. We just weren't organized. With new leadership coming in October, it took a few months to kind of work that out. But our executive committee has always had regular meetings. These are both impromptu meetings that both members take. You should know that Marie and I have the luxury to be able to text, call, and that our executive committee is extremely responsive for impromptu direction and meetings, and then also planned meetings. We do have planned meetings, and that these meetings are everything from crisis to very strategic meetings. And so it is quite a range of types of meetings and the purpose of the meetings, but we just appreciate appreciate the executive committee work. Example of state charter school board executive committee work can be communication plans and giving us guidance on how we might communicate, giving us different agendas. Certainly that's a main task of the executive committee, is to set the agenda each month. There are, per bylaws, other ways to get agenda items. Just refer to the bylaws and you'll see those other ways. But our executive committee lets go of some items each month. They add some items each month. They take direction from staff. Our oversight committee is also having regular meetings. They also have timed those meetings to occur prior to an executive committee meeting, which I think is really smart. So they want to feed into or kind of give input where needed into executive committee meetings. And we're just really excited about the work of that committee. They are aligning their work in the near future. Once the accountability framework is passed, hopefully today, how does that align with the oversight model? And our oversight committee will be critical for that work. How do those two things work in conjunction and are aligned with one another. I know that our authorizing committee is also having regular meetings. We appreciate your work. There are more opportunities to review and engage and recommend for approval multiple bilateral agreements each month. You saw a signing party today. It seems that each month there's 4, 5, 6 different agreements that are being reviewed, and then getting a recommendation from that authorizing committee, or in some cases go back to the drawing board and tighten things up. And we really appreciate that the leadership, the recommendations that come from that authorizing committee, especially as it relates to the bilateral agreements. The legislative committee worked their tails off during the legislative session, and we all know the 3 members of this committee, and we are effectively calling it a committee now. I think that we kind of had a working group and some other terminology. It really is being referred to as a committee now at this point as well. And we know that there's work this May and also in June during the interim. And we're looking forward to reconvening. I know members of that committee have requested, hey, we got to get together soon and let's keep doing our work. The innovation committee could potentially be focusing in on CMOs, classical education models. Virtual reality continues to be a subject. We know that's about as cutting edge innovation as you can get. Other states are looking to our state now, and we're getting calls from Georgia and other states. Hey, you approved a virtual reality, charter school. How's that going? Well, it'd be really good for our innovation committee to be plugged into that work and be able to talk that through. And then also AI and education. The finance committee had 2 power meetings last week. We had back-to-back hour-long meetings. We had to catch up. We had to get ready for fiscal year 26. And in that meeting, our engaged committee members said that they'd really like to meet more frequently in the next few months. And I think that that's really a great thing. So thank you, committee members and committees, for your hard work. And these are just some updates of the work that you're doing. On the staff side, we are, along with some board members, going to the National Charter School Institute. This will be in Atlanta, Georgia. It's next week. And this is going to be called the A-Game Convening. We're all super excited about the presentation that Vice Chair Spiker and Associate Director Stephenson will be providing to the group. We're also up for 2 awards. And so we're hoping to do well. And if not, we'll bring it next year again. So. You should be aware that the staff is actively working through several letters of awareness. Letters of awareness, you're familiar with that tool. I think we've described that tool a few times. It's a staff-initiated tool. Not always does the executive committee even know that we're working through some of those. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But either way, it's a collaborative and communication opportunity that sometimes leads to more work with LEAs and boards. We also are working through several notice of concerns, and these are also staff-initiated tools. Some are related to negative media stories right now and just some different things. And so we actively working with LEA board members and administration on notices of concern. Our executive committee is aware of those, but certainly as a full board, if you're ever interested in more information on those, let us know. Those are staff-initiated tools. Warning would be the first board-initiated tool that's used. Just a reminder that graduation ceremonies are now. This is the season. I know that Andrea Jones, our executive assistant, has circulated a sign-up tool. And so where you can sign up, those are fun. Those are really great opportunities for us to go into schools. And then just a reminder that the June meeting will be back at the State Charter School Board office. So that's the executive committee meeting or updates, report, and if there's any questions, Chair, or any discussion that's needed, always welcome to it.
Any questions or discussions from the board member? Pulsifer?
I do have one, and again, knowing that I'm a little bit new still here, but. The committees, which I love, I mean, from what I can see, it's fantastic, I love that we're doing that. Are there opportunities for them to share what they're doing with the full board? Like sort of more regularly, I mean. I don't know, maybe you already do that, I just don't know.
We don't currently, but a good suggestion, good input. So it's
Okay.
maybe something that this board wants to consider going forward.
I think it would be good to have a little bit of a record of who's, I don't know who's on the information committee. I know the committees I'm on, but I really don't know who's on the other committees. So that would be nice to post that, I think, just for our awareness if we have an issue we want to ask about or something.
Further comments or questions? Anyone? Further comments? Thank you. That will help to improve that process. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Discussion item of the LEA board and admin surveys. Thank you for doing them and for so quickly.
Absolutely.
Just have that feedback. Appreciate it.
Well, it was at your encouragement and your direction, Chair, that we embark on some survey work. It really worked nicely with some contract work that we are doing. You may or may not get a chance to meet an individual from the Learning Collective who we're doing some outsourced work with. Adam Aberman at the Learning Collective is working on really researching and understanding through surveys, through focus groups, through research, ways that we can support LEA boards. And so this particular tool, which is responses to the survey, dovetailed really nicely with his work. And so we just said, could you add to your work, just helping us put out the surveys, organize the results and things like that. And he graciously got on board. And Sriti has also been our point of contact for these things. Thank you for your work. And so before we turn to some preliminary results, that's all it is some preliminary results. We're halfway through, maybe a little bit more than halfway through the surveys. It broke down into, three areas. One are some questions related to NACSA best practices, National Association of Charter School Authorizers. And we took a look at what do they value as a national organization that works with authorizers. What could we ask? And some questions were designed based on NACSA best practices. And then we designed some survey questions that were based on our values, the state charter school board values. Thought it really be important that we understand how do we measure up against the very values that we adhere to. And then the third section was Adam Aberman's, and that would be the Learning Collective's work to understand board wants and needs. And so we're going to share just some very preliminary data back. And I think that you'll be pleased with the baseline. The baseline both shows that we're doing good and great work, but it also shows room for continuous improvement. And so we just view, even preliminarily, that this gives us real opportunities. So we'll go kind of quickly through the next, 16 slides or so. I think the visuals will kind of pound home the points to you, and you can kind of see the results. We have a good response from board members as of yesterday. This is a NACSA question that deals with clarity and transparency. And you can see that we score percentage-wise in the 3s and 4s, much more than we do in the 1s and 2s. And the same trend goes to the next slide. We have 65 responses as of yesterday. And you can see once again that with clarity and transparency, that the board and the staff do see that we are clear and transparent, scoring at a good. 3 is good and 4 would be great, the highest mark that you can get. This particular question does reveal one of the areas of greatest room for improvement. And so if this is one of the places where we can improve, we have a golden opportunity. Marie and I only briefly talked about it. We said, wow, it looks like preliminarily that we have opportunity to become even more transparent and clear on things like our performance framework, which we're about to roll out a communications plan on, implementation plan on. Turn to the next slide if you could, Marie. Consistency and oversight, you can see it once again, 3s and 4s. And this would be a board response. Okay, how is our office doing? How's based on administration? They also view percentage-wise that our office is consistent and fair. The next one is also a NACSA question. We really like that we're responding to the board and being timely. That's important to us as staff. We talk often about that. Is that how quickly and how thoroughly we respond. I think with the administration slide, we once again see that very few, just four administrators out of 67 thought that we could have been more timely and responsive. And so a nice baseline. And then if you could turn to the next slide. Room for continuous improvement. So the boards do see another area for opportunity for growth and for us to work. And that's why that work that the Learning Collective is doing is super important. So we know what areas do the boards and do the schools, the LEAs want us to help them with. Because this question really only taps at the quantitative information, but we get a lot of qualitative information from the Learning Collective's work. So we do have support for continuous improvement, doing pretty well there. There's a couple more slides, so you'll have to just bear with me. But I think it does preliminarily tell a story. It tells the story that we are doing good and we could become great. I think there's a book like that, right? It's gonna be great. Next slide, please. General perceptions. I think this is one that preliminarily we're really pleased to get. We know that some stakeholders have been critical or unaware of the work that we do, but certainly our boards and the administration of schools does have a general perception, and they do have good relationships. I think that's a story that we need to tell all the stakeholders and not just let it be a secret between the LEAs and us. But we're doing fairly well there. The next is the same question, but just asked to administration. The next question has to do with a value, I believe. Nope, not quite. This is just the trend. We're looking for the trend line. Our best trend line will come when we administer the survey again next year. And the following year, we'll probably make some tweaks to the survey instrument. And then we'll really get to see some trends. But at least in this Likert scale, we can see that a lot of the board and administration sees at a high level that we're trending the right way over the past year. Input and voice is a NACSA type of value. And that's the board response. And then this is the admin response. There's just 5 more slides. We have 5 values. We'll briefly go over them. And with excellence. I think with this particular slide, one key feature that Marie and I are just starting to talk about, and the board, when you get final results, there'll be a better presentation from Adam at the Learning Collective, I'm certain. But preliminarily, there's 3s. And excellence really can only be defined by a 4. And so this is one of the particular values that we're going to look to achieve at the highest level and make sure that that bar is set at the 4 level. Because anything less than 4, quite honestly, when you're talking about something like excellence, falls short. And so I think that this, again, is good, but we got to become great, especially in the area of excellence. And then to the next, the admin said basically the same thing. Trust, I think is very strong. We definitely want to work in this case, in all the ones and twos. I know we're talking more about the threes and fours, but certainly in the area of trust, when we're working bilaterally with our LEAs, we must work to get, any one removed, and really any two removed. Because in a bilateral contractual agreement, this is one of the most important areas. If we fall and get a lot of threes in this area a year from now, but we've removed the ones and the twos, we think that that would be tremendous progress preliminarily, just a preliminary idea. And then the admin kind of feels the same, but how wonderful it would be to have 0 ones reported at this time next year. These are anonymous surveys. It will not be revealed to us, who said, basically, we don't trust you, right? But we're gonna work hard to make sure we're providing highest excellent service and support, and that we do move all of our ones into minimum twos and certainly into threes and fours. The next value is impact. It reflects very similar to the other ones. Next value is still impact. It's just reported from the admin side. There's 2 more values, authenticity. And then the admin view of authenticity. And then the value of compassion. So you don't want to get into too much analysis at this point, but Chair, it was at your encouragement that we put out a survey. We were pleased that we were able to give you some preliminary results while you're still our chair, and maybe you may see some of the same trends and data points that we do at this time, which is a great baseline to work from, both that we're doing good and great work, but then also room for improvement and get, good to great type of work. So there's 3 more slides or 4 more slides, which I'll go over, and then we'll open up for questions and comments and anything else. This is some of the work that the Learning Collective is doing. It shows that there are a lot of board members at schools that have some experience. They're seasoned pros, but there's also a group that go back 1 slide real quick. Thanks, Marie. But there's also, a little more than 10% that need proper onboarding. And we'll see that in a slide coming up, is that onboarding could be a support that we provide boards. And then also to the question that was asked in this next, have you served on other boards prior to, no. So the first experiences that a lot of people have been on these charter boards. That's remarkable information right there for us. Okay. And then by more than half, boards seem to be preliminarily looking for guidance and support in the governance area. Even more so than finance. I would have guessed finance, but governance, legal requirements, those things. How do we run a meeting, open meeting law, all of that. Final slide, I believe, or one of the final slides, does show that new board member orientation is leading in the area where specific trainings could be very helpful for boards. Then with our last slide then. Also just interesting, and there'll be a lot more questions that are answered and qualitative data that comes with the final. We oftentimes think to ourselves, they want a lot of customization. With 44 responses in right now, actually they're okay with some boilerplate, strong professional development and guidance, and it doesn't necessarily, at least 66% say it doesn't have to be necessarily customized. We don't need more of that necessarily, which is revealing. So Chair, I'll turn it back to you and to the rest of the board for questions. This was the work and the directive that you gave us in the last meeting, and we worked hard to get you something to
Thank you. Knowing
look
that,
at.
knowing that it was very quickly done. Before I go on, I want to make sure, because I apologize, I should have acknowledged some time ago. But I want to make sure that we recognize and in our minutes, we know that Member Hall from the State Board of Education has joined our meeting as well and is online with us and has been consistent since his appointment to that board. He has come to this meeting and we really appreciate him being with us too. So let me open to any of you and then I'll ask questions I would. There are some of them that I'd say if I were helping a doctoral student with some questions or things that I would want to know relative to it. Like, is it still open? You're still receiving responses and knowing that I asked for that to happen so quickly, there really wasn't to give folks a lot of time to respond because that number of response still you wouldn't have a statistically significant number to really draw any conclusions at this point. So you'd really want to make sure that you'd have it's open and you're gathering more. Those who tend to respond quickly are those who are either really eager and happy about responding, or those on the other end of the spectrum who want to make sure that you know that they have displeasure with it, so you get both tails. Yeah, and the percentages were generally each question fairly consistent, you know, as far as numbers generally across. But that middle ground, you still want to gather that ground of people who would give us a lot of good feedback. So I hope that you'll continue to encourage them to respond to it. There are some things I would ask question-wise, like the question about when I asked about authenticity, was there any description about what that means?
Like a definition of what.
Because
Yes, there is an example. There's not a lot of examples, but there is one example embedded in the question that at least gives board members and administration an idea. I
okay,
don't remember what that question is. Reedy's kind of
because
looking.
I would ask that question, what do you mean, what are they asking me about authenticity? What does that mean? That they're authentic in their work? I'm not sure. So that's one that I would say you need to make sure that's clarified and defined so that everyone is answering the same question to their work. And I'll ask one just about the last question too in a minute. I'll let Smith you do that. I'll go ahead and ask the last one. The last one I asked about the boards want customized support from our board, and I could read it one of two ways. You know, if I don't pay attention to the customized support part, yeah, I could read it as, do I want any support? Do I want you to come and talk to me about things, or I do want you to give me room to work as we need to in our own school, as opposed to do I want, and I don't necessarily want any kind of support. It could mean that as well, so I would be unsure if that question came to me, I would be unsure. Are you asking? Maybe I don't want any support, as opposed to tailoring for the work that we're doing.
Or support from the state charter school board.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh.
Yeah, right. I don't need the state charter school board.
Right, or
As a board, I don't need you to give me any,
Right.
we're doing okay in our school. I don't need you to give me any support, let
Right.
alone customize. So if that question may want to split up. You know, you want to say, I would probably just want to know what support do you need, right? And that's part of that qualitative responses to, are there supports that you would like? And then you could ask that question, of course, what might those be, right? What might those be? Sweeties, sorry, you're going to.
So the question itself, it's coming from the definition of authenticity that we have, on our website, which is like we stay true to our mission and vision regardless of pressures to act otherwise. We are transparent and honest to our stakeholders. We do what we say we are going to do and be what we commit to be. But then the question is authenticity. How well do you believe SCSP embodies the value of authenticity by demonstrating transparency and honesty to our stakeholders.
Okay, so does it include that definition, those elements in the, as I'm answering the question, would I as a respondent see that definition? That's just something I'm thinking about is you look at that, if I don't know what I'm responding to, I'm gonna make up what I think you
Yeah,
mean by
right.
authenticity, and then we're answering different questions. Right? So that's just one to think about as you continue to look at that survey. But it's a good thing to ask our folks, you know, how can we support? And there may be others, as you said, as you tweak the instrument and do that. I encourage everyone that you continue to review that as more data comes in, that you look at it again and keep looking at it to know, and then use it to help you to design how you're going to move forward. It'll give some good work relative to working with schools. And also that you continue to think about that on an annual basis, at least about how, you know, what do you need to know and how can you best make it. Board members, I just jumped in, so there may be other things any of the rest of you want to ask or know.
I've got a question or two. If I
Yeah.
could. So I think this is great. I really appreciate Chair Bull's nudging us to get this information. I think it's great to make a plan, but you gotta have a base level of feedback to make an effective plan. But I guess that's my question is just as this has kind of been a peak, a 50% peak into some of the data. I think there's some trends that probably, I don't know, we'll see if they stay consistent, but there were some trends there. But as we move forward, do we expect to have a partner? I guess when you ask a question, right, it's good to ask a question, but then there's this follow-up of if you don't do anything about what you asked, you can almost distance yourself, right, from the respondents. So do we have, I know we don't have details, but do we have a process or thought in place from that? And then my second question that I would love feedback on is, do we expect this to be driven from kind of the executive committee? Or you know, how we think that looks? And if we don't have answers to those things, it's okay, but I didn't know if there was any current thoughts.
Yeah, so one of the lifts coming out of the survey and the questioning and things like that will be the contract work that we have with the Learning Collective. I see that Adam has joined us just to say hi. Adam is the principal owner of the Learning Collective. But they'll be able to take results of any information that's gathered and turn it into actionable items for us. And then I think it'll be a combination of committee work and full board work. You know, just kind of depends on you know, how much work there is to do. It may need to be done in a committee. If it's something that needs some discussion and decision, appropriately handled in a board meeting. So I think we'll have to kind of give and take through that. As we always do, is kind of give and take for that. I did invite Adam just to say hi. Adam, can you take 30 seconds and just say hi to our board? Thank you, sir. You've been helping us with some of this work.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Aberman. As Paul said, I'm the principal owner of the Learning Collective. We've been around since 2003. We work with authorizers around the country on evaluation and strategic planning. Do work in Chicago, New York, another city to be unnamed at this point, but we work with developing performance frameworks, doing renewal visits. We worked with Tennessee State Board of Education to develop their 5-year plan for all of their schools. And we do a lot of work with boards too. Individual independent school boards, helping them think through their development and their ongoing operations. And also we lead board retreats for charter management organizations. And we're really excited about the work with Paul and his team and work with all of you to figure out and come up with some recommendations on what are best ways that you as that the state charter school board could support, improve, enhance support for boards, and also enhance relationships with these LEA boards. So in order to do that, we've already issued some surveys to board members. We've got about about 50 responses from LEA board members. We're also going to have a series of focus groups next week. We have about 15 or so LEA board members that have volunteered time to participate. We're also going to interview some authorizers from around the country to get their perspectives. Obviously, Utah is a unique situation in that you're an evergreen state in terms of evergreen charters. So we're really excited to be part of this project and think it could be really helpful, and we think it would be really beneficial for the board. So it's our pleasure to participate. And also we may even be having a one-on-one interview with one or two of you board members as well as part of the process. So hopefully that would work out as well. But again, thank you for the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure to work with Paul and his team, and we're looking forward to the work.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you for joining us today and for helping us to guide that work as well. Let me go back to those responses, just because I want to clarify, because maybe what I assumed is not true. When we said 44 board member responses, that means 44 individuals.
Correct.
So there could be, I mean, potentially we should have over 900 responses. We have 132 schools, an average of 7, I thought, on the board. That's like 950 responses we should have, and at this point, only 44. That's a very small response rate. So that's why I know this is a quick turnaround. That therefore my encouragement to continue to gather, because you're going to get better information if you're going to have more than that. The 132 schools, even from leaders of that school, those schools, to have, how many do we have so far? 50?
Just under 70.
About 55?
55.
55, 132, so that's getting closer to a 50% rate of the numbers of schools. But to try to gather, to give you more information will be more useful, and more, it'll make your direction more accurate. Because if you're only getting the outliers responding, you're only going to get those outliers responses. You want to get a better response rate, so that you get a more significantly statistically significant response rate, so that'll help you. And the focus groups I'm excited about too, Adam, because that'll give you richer, more qualitative kinds of information as well. So that's great. Thank you so much. What other things, board members, anything else you want to ask? This is just a start. I hope that, up to you, but I hope that you'll continue asking those questions and continue to reach out to the schools and know that that's what we're here to do. And we think collectively, we've said that we're here to serve those schools. And if we are not serving them well, if we don't ask, we don't know. So some of that is in asking and making sure that we're aware of it. So thank you all. And thank you, Adam, for your expertise and joining with us and helping that work to go forward. Anything else with those? Thank you for doing it. I should say thank you for jumping right in and making that happen. I know you were kind of, I think, in the process, but you made that happen very quickly at that prompting. So thank you so much for doing it and giving us a start. And if they were really, if those results hold out, really very good responses. Really, that will be saying, okay, we're at least on track and can continue to work towards even more fours, but to have that many 3s and 4s is really wonderful. Yeah, thanks.
Can I say one thing about the focus groups? We've actually structured the focus groups to try to be representative. So we have 4 different types of focus groups. So board members from the higher performing, middle performing, and low performing schools. So focus groups, different focus groups for each group, as well as for new schools. So we're trying to get a representative sample through those focus groups.
Yeah, that's good. That thought about the target populations in order to be able to get that representative group will be really impressive too. So thank you. So hopefully they'll be there and they'll speak up and share, and that'll be great. And it'll give you some rich information to those focus groups who do it. I know that if you've never been, and some of you observed, focus groups have been in it, it really is a great experience. If you're observing them, you have to just you have to be really quiet or behind one-way glass so that you don't say anything. But otherwise, they're really very useful to have that information. All right.
Let's move to our next agenda item. I'm not hearing anything, any other additional questions or feedback relative to surveys. Thank you for launching that and for getting it started. And so we're at our item, presentation and discussion item of the statewide cybersecurity assessment.
This is wonderful to have these groups come forward and request to be part of our meeting. So thank you. You're going to hear from Troy, the UEN Associate Director, who has a presentation on cybersecurity in the state. But we also recognize the work of Matt Lorimer and Pete Insall from CompuNet Lead Cybersecurity. And so we're going to turn it over to you, Troy. We thank you for requesting to be in our meeting. And you're on the agenda now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share some of our findings and things. Just to give you another real quick understanding of who I am. My name is Troy Jessup. I work for the Utah Education Network. We're essentially the group of individuals that you probably most know us by your internet service providers in many of your cases. We're providing those internet links to many of the charter schools throughout the state. But we also do several other major initiatives. We help in consortium approaches to large education problems and things. And that really kind of feeds into one of the major initiatives that we have focused on since last year is a cybersecurity assessment that we performed throughout the entire state. So we took a large swath of education, including higher ed, technical colleges, K-12, traditional K-12 LEAs, and a sample size of charter schools, and performed what we call a CIS, critical security controls baseline cybersecurity assessment. So I've got a couple of slides here that I'll share just to make it easier for you to follow along. I would invite anybody with questions throughout the presentation, if you've got them, happy to address them in the middle of the presentation, or we can also punt them to the end. But this is an assessment that we kicked off late last year. So about August, September timeframe, we contracted with CompuNet, UEN contracted with CompuNet to perform this large cybersecurity baseline assessment and went through several iterations of planning and figuring out how to structure this in such a large base. And we were able to pull out of all of that data several key findings. And instead of spending a lot of time in higher ed, technical colleges, and other areas, I've distilled this down. And so you're going to see some comparisons for school districts and charter schools in here, which I think are the closest in similarity. I know that charter schools are a much different approach to things as well, but it gives us a way to kind of compare how things are going. But to give you just a high level overview, this CIS controls implementation. CIS is a cybersecurity framework. It's one that we have taught, evangelized, and encourage any and all education entities to adopt. And this is the basis for that security assessment. I did include higher education or degree granting entities, is what they like to be called now. And what I wanted to show is that out of all of those security controls, higher education has about 62% implemented and 26% partially implemented. Only 12% of all of those cybersecurity controls remain unimplemented inside of a higher ed institution. And in comparison, technical colleges are doing a little bit worse. I don't want to call it out and say it's bad, but the 50% of the controls that would normally be in place to manage cybersecurity issues are in place in technical colleges. Where this gets a little bit more interesting is when we get into school districts and charter schools. And so what you can see here is they're actually, from a CIS critical control framework implementation, pretty evenly split here, meaning that as you're comparing school districts to charter schools, about 39% of the charter schools, or sorry, not of charter schools, 39% of the controls that we would expect to see implemented inside of any LEA or any education institution are currently implemented inside these two spaces. You can see a little bit of variance in how many are partially implemented versus how many are not implemented at all. But this raises some concerns. And part of the reason why we wanted to reach out and have this interaction with this board is because we understand your role in helping all charter schools, continue to improve in a lot of different areas. But one of the areas that we feel very strongly about, especially in light of many recent cybersecurity issues and incidents that have occurred within the state, several large school districts, even smaller school districts, experiencing compromises to their data and information. Cybersecurity continues to be a very large or heavy priority that we need to start kind of continue to figure things out with. So this is that implementation status for those, but let me talk about a couple of other key findings here that help tell the story a little bit. And again, this presentation was originally built to include all four major categories, the degree granting entities, tech colleges. And so you can ignore some of that, but it might help you compare from something that's being well done. You take somebody like the University of Utah, who has really a mature cybersecurity approach to things. When it comes to information security policies, and these are those critical fundamental policies that dictate how passwords are used, how data is classified, how and where data is stored, how it is shared. All of these types of things that have an impact on data security, account access, and remote access security and things are all governed by policy. And that's the only real way to require or measure enforcement. And so, as you can see, degree granting entities, they have figured out, at least whether it's ad hoc policy, managed, or well-defined policy, they've solved most of their cybersecurity, information security policies issues. But if we get down into school districts and charter schools, which is where I want to draw your attention, school districts generally do a pretty good job in getting some of that stuff rolling. An ad hoc implementation, just for your information here, we're using what we call the maturity model way of grading here. And so ad hoc means that there's at least some understanding or some loosely defined policy that's somewhere in place, versus managed, which means that it is enforced and part of the culture and operations of an organization. And well-defined is more, is it rolled out and managed across all system services and things equally and consistently. What we see here is that in information security policy analysis, our assessment showed that 50% of the charter schools that we assessed as part of this group, or as part of this assessment, had no information security policies in place. And so that's pretty concerning. And so we wanted to draw that to your attention, let you know that this is that fundamental piece of how cybersecurity needs to be managed and governed and evaluated and measured inside of these entities. And there's just a lot of this that's missing in those specific or cases. Again, it's hard to kind of get into the specific detail, and I would love to, talk about specific policies and other things, and I'll provide those to the board in kind of a separate document that you can share and see where some of this stands, because it's hard to see what a 50% means when all of the, throughout all the policies and things that we're talking about here. But charter schools seem to struggle quite a bit with this, with information security policy. Couple of other things that I wanted to show you some interesting contrast on as well. Every single degree granting entity within the state of Utah has cybersecurity staff in place. Technical colleges fall at about 50%. when we get into school districts and especially in charter schools, there is little or none or there's little to no staffing that is directly managing, maintaining, and operating cybersecurity initiatives within charter schools. And we do understand the struggle that charter schools have with IT staff and having to rely on third-party partners and third-party contractors in order to come in and provide some of those basic services. But they're also not providing deep cybersecurity expertise, classifications of data, data protection evaluations, and those kinds of things. And so, specifically in school districts and charter schools, we struggle. But the number of staffing that we see is not meeting the needs of the charter schools, or frankly, many of the other entities in the state. One of the recommendations that will come later, we'll talk about staffing, and I can provide perhaps a couple of recommendations specific to how charter schools are governed and managed that might be helpful as we get a little bit further in the presentation. One of the other key findings that we found is through logging and alerting. And let me just give the board a high-level overview of what this means. Being able to detect and respond and to cybersecurity incidents and things when they occur relies very heavily on logging and alerting capabilities. And what this is the servers, the systems, the antivirus programs, we call that EDR in the cybersecurity space, but all of these tools need to send logs and information to a centralized source so that they can be analyzed and looked at and reviewed for anomalies and issues. A couple of examples might be, hey, when the director of the school normally logs in from, to their student information systems and things from the IP address at the school, and sometimes they get in from home. But what would happen if somebody logged in from Morocco or somewhere else? Those kinds of things are what we rely on, the logs and system information and things to show us or provide to us the real information that we can respond to cyber, or that we use to respond to cybersecurity incidents. What we're seeing here essentially is that in charter schools specifically, only 40% of the charter schools that we assessed have any sort of centralized logging and management of this data, meaning that there's 60% of the school or the charter schools out there that don't have any visibility into issues, incidents, and other things that could be occurring on those networks. And it raises quite a few concerns. Of those that have logging and alerting in place, only 20% of those are actually using those to generate automated alerts when certain types of things occur. Documented logging policies, we found that no charter school in the state, again, that we assessed, has documented logging policies requiring that this type of thing be put into place. So this is one of those concerning trends. This is also one of the things that I'll speak at the end of the presentation about, a solution that we have worked on at UEN to make available to charter schools that I'll cover here in just a little bit. What I wanted to do is just cover some of the school district key findings so that, again, there's a little bit of a comparison if it's helpful for you all. As we went through and identified all of the major key findings inside of the schools or the school districts, we found that their strengths really come from a heavy collaboration, cross school district, regional coordination efforts, and other things where they share cybersecurity expertise, IT expertise and services. They combine a lot of their systems and services. They're all on the same basic cybersecurity tools and firewalls and things. And so there's a lot of good information sharing collaboration there. Regional service centers that they rely on are a major support mechanism for school districts. Think of this as kind of a consortium. Maybe some of you are familiar with regional service centers, but it's a consortium of several school districts that band together to provide support for each other. So there's a service center that would have a cybersecurity professional that is shared across several entities or several school districts. Multi-factor authentication is another area where we saw school districts, had done some really good work. About 83% of the school or the administrative accounts in school districts have multi-factor authentication protections in place. A couple of areas for growth, and the reason why I'm going to go through these a little bit line by line is because there's a lot of comparison that we'll do here in just a moment. Only 2% of school districts have performed tabletop exercises where they actually simulate cybersecurity breaches and review and figure out how they would respond to an incident if it were to occur. 51% of the school districts have multi-factor authentication deployed beyond administrative accounts, which isn't great, meaning that 49% of school districts have faculty, staff, and some administrative accounts that are not two-factor authentication protected. These include things like student information systems, email accounts, and other things that create a large opportunity for the miscreant groups out there to find breached credentials and come in and log in and access system services, data, etc. 29% of the school districts have a documented and enforced data classification model. This might be a new concept for some, so I'll explain it a little bit more. But in the cybersecurity space now, it's a crucial activity to classify data, the types of data that you have, where that data is stored, who has access to that data, and making sure that it doesn't exist in other areas or on rogue hard drives or on somebody's shared volume, or they're backing it up to a USB drive and taking it home, those kinds of things. Those data classification models then feed into the types of protections that you need to have for that type of data. Only 29% of school districts are really complying well with that. We talked a little bit about security policy enforcement and review. I won't get too much into that. And many school districts have passwords policies that don't align with industry best practices. Now, what I will say here is this isn't super surprising. We even see this or we see this across the board in education because of the nature and how do you teach a kindergartner how to create and remember a complex password is sometimes a very difficult endeavor. And so we have to compromise in some of those areas. And so there are other technologies that we can or should rely on in order to keep systems, services, and things protected. But as we've reviewed in depth the school district issues, here's where we land with charter schools. Multi-factor authentication on administrative accounts is 80% implemented across charter schools. These are those that have critical access to major data store systems like student information systems, finance systems, and other things. 70% of the charter schools require a cybersecurity policy review during employee onboarding, meaning that as an employee, teacher, faculty, staff are onboarded, there is at least some mention of and understanding of an agreed cybersecurity policy review. Now, those policies aren't comprehensive in many cases, but there is a process that we noticed and wanted to note here as a strength for charter schools. Areas for growth, however, oops, and I hit that button again. The only 10% of the charter schools surveyed have any sort of formalized incident response plan. So meaning that if there were an incident at 90% of the charter schools, there's going to be a lot of confusion, lack of understanding of how to respond, and things. And I heard somebody chime in. Is there a question or perhaps
No,
not?
my copy just says 30%. It was just that's all.
Your copy said
No,
30?
and no worries, it's still small, it's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's no problem. It was just the copy of the slides that was in our packet.
Oh, okay.
Was just a little different. It's okay. I didn't have sorry that the owl really picked up on my.
The owl.
Yeah, so please, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay.
yeah,
So some of this is refined a little bit since maybe the draft version of this uh, presentation was sent. And so you're going to have, I think, even more. You're going to see a lot of the higher ed things that I've pulled out just to streamline this presentation today too, in that previous thing.
Great.
Anyways, moving ahead, 50% of surveyed charter schools have no information cybersecurity policy, which we already mentioned. 30% of surveyed charter schools have multi-factor authentication deployed to faculty, staff, and admin accounts, meaning that beyond those administrative critical system accounts, only 30% of charter schools are actually enforcing two-factor authentication. Most charter schools lack a documented data classification model. And again, as we mentioned, many have password policies that don't align with industry best practices, and could use some help in some of those key areas where we know passwords are difficult, especially with younger students. Key finding summary. What I wanted to do is just kind of summarize all of this up into strategic cybersecurity framework adoption. Needs to be rolled out within charter schools and several other LEAs as well. And the CIS critical control framework or another appropriate framework needs to be used in that strategic planning for IT services, and how we manage, maintain our data, how we respond to incidents, how we log and monitor for incidents and issues, and things. And without using a framework, it's really tough to measure against how well we're doing. And so we're proposing the CIS critical control framework be the one adopted formally, perhaps by this board and required by charter schools that participate in this consortia. Institutions with dedicated cybersecurity staff strengthen the effectiveness of security programs. This is one of those other key areas that we wanted to bring up, is that there's a significant lack in charter schools of not just security staff, but even IT staff. Oftentimes in our experience at UEN, when we are monitoring network level data and information and we see something that is suspicious or concerning, we'll reach out to a charter school, and the best IT support that we can get in some cases is the principal or the director of the school, and then they have to call in some parental resources or other types of resources in order to actually really address an IT or cybersecurity issue or incident inside of that space. And so that's kind of concerning to us, is that without good, comprehensive, or skilled staff to provide direction and really kind of understand data security and how we're managing that, we're missing a lot of opportunities here. Most education institutions need help creating comprehensive written security policies. Resource constraints, time, budget, skill, user base is kind of what I was mentioning before, really make it tough for us in general to be effective in cybersecurity. But one of the other places that we wanted to talk about a strength here in this key finding is in the areas in the state, whether it's at regional service centers or TCC groups and other organizations that have banded together to help with IT and cybersecurity resources, we see a marked increase in their capabilities, their maturity in cybersecurity. And this is one of those areas where in charter school space, we don't see a good collaboration or a good group of folks sharing and working on this type of thing together. And so I wanted to, make a recommendation that if there's something that this board could do to kind of help collaborate some of those resources, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah.
Last couple of things here really quickly, because I know I'm coming up on time here. School district snapshots. What you're looking here are cybersecurity tools, and this goes to one of the points that I was making before. In that collaborative effort, these are the major tools that are used by or inside of school districts, and you can see that there's a lot of commonality with with specific types of tools. They're all using, for the most part, either Fortinet or Palo Alto network firewalls. They're all using either AdLumen or FortiAnalyzer for their MDR. This is that automated incident response central logging system. Many of them are using either Microsoft Exchange or Google, which is primarily the service that's being used by school districts for their business email and things. There is a little bit more diversity across the board in EDR vendors. This is the antivirus types of software, the things that detect when something's bad on a specific system or service. But what we see in charter schools is a lot of diversity. There's not a lot of commonality in some of the use of these tools and services, with the exception of business email. I mean, in education, Google is king, and they offer a lot of great services and capabilities, but there's not a common approach among charter schools, and so it makes it difficult with all of that diversity to come up with good collaborative efforts, policies, lessons learned, those kinds of things that we rely on heavily inside of IT and security for effectiveness. Go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, gosh, it was just me making, I'm like, so.
You're
this is
fine.
my-
It's my.
Yeah, so sorry.
You're good. You're good. Don't even worry about
I'm
it.
an outward thinker, so.
Well, so am I. So you'll hear some ums and ahs from me too.
You're
Well,
giving
so
me and you're giving me so much to think about. I'm just like,
well, let
Yeah.
me sum it up, and then we'll open it up for some questions. The recommendation for institutions, again, I stripped out tech colleges and higher ed institutions out of this, and really wanted to kind of talk about charter schools. And these are the recommendations that we have. In essence, they're almost a priority list as well, although somebody could interpret one as a higher priority than another. We don't want to be super firm on that, but centralized logging and alerting. The easiest way for me, or the most scary way for me to put this, is that of those institutions that are not monitoring and alerting with centralized logging, there could be compromises and there could be malicious activity occurring on those networks that are going undetected, that you wouldn't even know about because we're not watching for the signs of bad things happening inside of our networks and systems and services. And so that is a key and critical element. And I've got a spoiler for that here in just a minute, but let's get through the rest of these. A strategic framework adoption, the CIS critical control framework, or many of the other great cybersecurity frameworks, is something that charter schools, the board here, or other consortia that are built within the charter school space should look at and adopt and start including in strategic planning for, hey, we're going to roll out this new thing. Let's make sure that it fits into the framework and that we check the boxes as we go for things. Automated alerting, in addition to the centralized logging, is the next thing. And I keep hitting that little button. Vulnerability management is another one that we don't see a lot of charter schools going on. And this is kind of where we meet up with some of the school districts. They have centralized logging and management working pretty well. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. Consistent multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication deployments. Cyber insurance policies. We saw there's a lot of diversity in how the charter schools are managing cyber breach insurance. From none to a little to I use this one, somebody else uses this one. There are a couple options that we could talk about in that. Additional staffing for IT and cybersecurity is something that we would highly continue to recommend, especially in group settings. One cybersecurity professional covering 5 or 6 charter schools can be more than effective with the general size of charter schools. Some are larger, some are smaller, but data inventories. We don't even know in charter schools in a lot of cases where that data is, what kind of data it is, how it's stored, who has access to it. Do we share it with an analytics company that's a third party that then sells it to Google, those kinds of things, and so on. You can read the rest here, but it's certainly, these are the recommendations that we have for this board to consider actions on in the future as we go through there. Some of the strategies for UEN, and then I'll finish up here and say statewide services. This is one of the areas where the Utah Education Network really shines in our capabilities. You may be familiar with many of the charter schools out there having deployed a content filtering solution that's required by SIPA, FERPA, and others. That is provided as a statewide option through the Utah Education Network. That is one of the services that we provide for this. One of the brand new services that started just a little over a month ago on the 1st of April, wasn't an April Fool's joke. We started providing to charter schools free of charge a full capable managed detection and response solution where if charter schools adopt or if they enroll, they can start sending all of those logs and alerts from all of their systems and services. It's not super difficult to implement those services in there. And we have actually, it's like having an alarm company that has 24/7 monitoring. When somebody logs in from Morocco, in the example that I gave earlier, somebody can get an email, a text message, or even a phone call from a managed detection response service to alert that there's something fishy going on that needs to be looked at into some more depth. And so that is in place. That rolled out on April 1st. We have many charter schools that have enrolled, but we're also not seeing a lot of effort being put into the deployment process of those. So as we go through, it's only as effective as the number and comprehensiveness of the logs being sent to the system. You can't just send one type of log and expect, comprehensive cybersecurity results. So it does take some time, some effort, but it is a key and critical element, as we've discussed in this assessment. We do have some of the other capabilities of providing policy templates, vulnerability scanning, centralized logging, tuning, and alerting, meaning that if you enroll in that service that I was mentioning, it's through AdLumen, by the way, in case I didn't mention that, that we can actually help you tune that so that you're not getting alerts that you don't want, and making sure that you're getting the types of alerts that are important for the diverse approach of each one of these different entities. Framework adoption resources that we can provide to you so that we can give you the analysis or the framework documentation. We can even give you self-assessment tools and other things to kind of really gauge how well you're doing in some of these spaces, etc. So these are some of those services that we can provide, whether it's directly or peripherally into how you're approaching cybersecurity. We are, oops, and I hit that button again. We are currently pursuing the following major initiatives to be aware of. Endpoint detection and response, or we call it EDR. We are looking to build a statewide implementation or a consortium approach to endpoint detection and response capabilities, and buy that at the state level and provide it to education customers. It's not something that's currently funded. It will be a major initiative for us in the next legislative session. And so in as much as this board or other appropriate entities can help support this type of approach, making the costs, deployment, and management of these types of security services more affordable and economical, would be helpful, unless you need to do something diverse and on your own, which we would fully support. We're also looking at vulnerability management services where we can actually do those vulnerability scans and services out there. It's a lower priority for us. We want to make sure that we can see what's happening first before we go and look for the problems directly. And then centralized logging, we've already worked on that one, as I mentioned. And then security awareness training is something that we're also making sure that we have opportunities to get out, talk to that, or talk to folks. Charter schools are tough. I can't really easily meet with 100 and how many is it? 157, I think is my count. It might be different from your perspective. I can't go out and do security awareness training at 157 different entities and be effective. But if there are opportunities where you bring large groups of charter school administrators together, or if you're bringing in, educators and other folks into large groups, conferences, or other events, we would be happy to come and actually talk about cybersecurity for the educators, what they need to be looking for, be aware of, those kinds of things. And it's kind of an open offer. You reach out to us and we'll engage where you are in that kind of space. So anyways, with that, the last thing that we do that I don't put up here on this slide, but for the benefit of this group, UEN does provide comprehensive penetration testing. We've got one of the best groups, best teams in the state providing that type of service. It is a fee-based service, and so there are some charges to that for the time, the resources, and other things that are used for a comprehensive assessment. It's not something that I'm recommending that you start with. There's many approaches looking at a security framework and addressing it or starting there. And then when you're ready, a pen test can really come in and show the very specific to the entity issues, problems, and things that could be solved and how and provide how to solve them. But it's a lot more involved. Anyways, with that, I know I'm over time just a little bit, but I would love to open it up for questions specific to the presentation or services and things that UEN is providing. Do we have questions?
Does anyone have a question you'd like to address to Troy? I'm going to say, Troy, first of all, thank you for coming here today to give us this overview. But even more broadly, thank you for all the work that UEN does for schools across the state and all the help you provide to schools and teachers specifically. And we really appreciate all of the services that you provide. This is, I know, just a piece of what you do, that there's a lot of work that UEN engages in that helps schools across the state. And we appreciate that and say thank you to you for all of that.
It's our pleasure, and we're happy to be partners in this with you, for sure.
So I want to, you go first.
I know our time is up against.
That's all right.
You gonna ask some questions? I apologize.
But no, you go first. You go first. Go ahead.
Okay,
Because you may say exactly what I was going to, and then it's done.
well, I doubt that. It won't be as good. Troy, I guess if I were gonna sum up your presentation, thank you for this. But in a very short version, it appears that the great majority of schools are in a vulnerable position with this issue. I mean, I think it's maybe 90%.
Yeah.
Some of your.
There's some degree of vulnerability everywhere, for sure.
And most schools don't even know they have a problem, right? So we're vulnerable. We don't even know we're vulnerable. It's not on our radar probably until it's too late, when somebody has sensitive data or financial or having, whatever. Bad stuff happens.
Right.
So it seems like this should be a priority, but at the same time, I can sympathize with schools that are asked to do 200 things and have time to do 100 things and have a budget to do 50 things.
Right.
This is a challenge, right? So, I like the idea. I mean, there were some very helpful suggestions in this, though, like collaboration and stuff. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, how do you move the water down the road on this? Because it does seem like it's an imperative issue.
Yeah, so we need to.
I know we have time to talk about that today.
Yeah.
It
But
does
there's some
seem like
things that we can do. I think that there are some things we can do. First of all, I think 132, I think is our authorized school number. Is that right, Maria? Close to 132, which means all of those others, Troy, so you know, are authorized by other entities, not by this board.
Right.
Though we can still support the whole group. But all of those others should be connected to a school district or to an institution of higher learning, and they should have those connections for cybersecurity through those other entities. So specifically, it is probably these 132 that we need to support and help the most. Because those others have those. And some of our authorized schools also have those connections and places. Because I was a superintendent of the Davis School District, and that was something really important to us. I think Davis is probably, I hope it's one of your A districts.
They do a really good job up at Davis, for sure.
shame on them because we worked hard on it. But I say that because like New Ames Charter School uses Davis's system.
Yes.
So New Ames would probably be connected. There are others who just don't. It's all about having those partnerships. And while you were talking, before you even mentioned, I thought, aha, this is exactly why I pushed a couple years ago, Royce will know, that I was pushing for, and Nate Marshall, who will talk to us through Providence Hall today, was the only one carrying the banner. Royce helped a lot. And he got Senator Fillmore to jump into for part of it as well. There is no regional service center along the Wasatch Front. We can serve our charter schools pretty quickly if they connect to regional service centers outside the Wasatch Front to help with some of that. This is exactly why 2 years ago, this is one of the key reasons why I said we need to have a regional service center along the Wasatch Front so that our charter schools can combine. Now, our charter schools also, I have to tell you, not one of them wants to have a security problem with their technology systems. None of them.
For
They
sure.
all want them to be safe. Every single one of them want it to be safe and secure. But that, we have to help them with some ways. They also, because they're so independent, say, to be in a regional service center, do I have to do what everybody else does? I want to do what I do individually. But this is one that is not, still allows them to have independence in what they do, but to have a joint support system in across a structure that will help them. So this is me, again, encouraging for us to think about when we work on legislative items and potentials that having a regional service center might be one of those solutions, and you mentioned it through your presentation, and it's one that I had already written down when you mentioned it. That's exactly why we need one along the Wasatch Front to which our charters can join services, because independently, it's very expensive and difficult, and they don't have the expertise individually sometimes to really make that happen. And yet they have classrooms full, we saw some today at Beehive Science and Technology Academy, who are brilliant at technology. Our own students know how to get into things that maybe they should or should not get into. They're really good at it, and we love them for their expertise, but we need to help protect them against themselves as well by having these systems in place. So partly is education, making a presentation like yours and helping our folks be aware of that. So that's something our team can jump into. I encourage us to continue to support the need for a regional service center, but that means all of our schools need to see the need to buy into a regional service center for this. And I still think there are other, I'll make a list of the other things I think a regional service center would help charters to do that they can't do as easily independently because they don't have the economy of scale that big districts can have departments doing that, right? That a charter just doesn't have that, yet they want to be secure. They don't want to have any problems. So that's something we can maybe energize Nate about again this morning as we talk to him too. And Royce may have some thoughts about that as well. I'm sure he does. And Royce would be a good resource relative to all of those as well. So I encourage that as we think about it as well as we go forward. So, but education is the first step. Much of what you've done today to let our team know, let all of our folks be aware of the needs. And then we could propose some potential solutions that would help them into the future. So anyway, we are none too late. We kind of had some things in the work that we could do, but let our folks know. Anything, other items anyone wants to talk about? I love it. Kids know about it. I was in a third grade classroom not long ago, and the teacher had her computer projected her front page, her home page, projected on the screen. She was logging in, she put in her username, And then she put in her password. Now, it was hidden. It just went dot, 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 dot. And I heard a little third grade boy lean across the neighbor across the aisle and say, I got it. Now I know teacher's password. It's dot, 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 dot. So the kids are even watching and paying attention at least to try to get those passwords.
That's
And we saw it in Ferris Bueller and whatever else, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean,
so-
we have events, hackathons.
Yeah.
I mean, this is part of this work. I think, yeah, I'm so
So-
grateful for the time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's student information we have to protect, financial information. Information of those who are on our the educators in those buildings as well, that is critical information that relative to their social security numbers, connected names, and all kinds of information that could really be devastating to them. So it's a very important issue. Thank you, Troy, for taking the time to educate us. And we'll probably be calling on you, I suspect, more to help to educate, if our schools just know, it's not that they don't want it, it's just having the time and the resources to make it happen. And as Member Wiesinger just said, it has to be on their radar to make sure that happens. So I think that you've taken the first big step, so thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we see this as a partnership as well. So we will be happy to engage with you in ways that you deem appropriate and meaningful. So with that, thank you for the time today, and good luck with the rest of your agenda and other items that you have. Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Cybersecurity.
Thank you, Troy. Thank you so much. Thank you for being
Okay.
with us.
We'll see you guys later.
All right. Thank you, Troy. All right, with that, just know that if you need to get up and move, because I looked to see if there's a break, there's not, we're just plowing on. So if you need to stand up and get something from the table or use restrooms or things, please just do it as you need to. We're now at the item accountability framework. Is that?
It is, yeah.
All right, so turn it to Mr. Kramer, Dr. Kramer.
Great, so the accountability framework has been the work in progress for over a year. The people that have been involved, Marie has been absolutely instrumental throughout this accountability framework. So thank you, Marie. The collaboration that you and I have had on this has been a lot of time. We want to really thank, we've had attorney generals, assistant attorney generals that have helped us with this. On our team specifically, Smriti, Brendan, and Lisa have all been outstanding points of contacts to drive the work in the academic area, the operation area, and the financial area. We have absolutely benefited from the work of the National Charter School Institute, specifically Cindy Schumacher, who you met once. Allison Murphy has been instrumental to the work to get this done. We've learned from other states and met people from other states. We have absolutely worked with LEAs, business people. There have been a lot of people that have been involved in the work. Marie's going to pull up a few documents that just kind of show. One's going to be a process document. It'll just go on the screen briefly. Board meetings. So with the process, while you're getting there, if you didn't get a chance to look at the 30-day public posting, there were a lot of public documents that were in there for your final review and hopeful adoption today in this agenda meeting item. But the process involved focus groups, the process involved surveys, the process involved talking with LEAs, talking with a lot of people. The timeline, if you reviewed it, great. If not, just kind of show a few key dates, right? It goes back to March 22nd of 2024. And so this work has been in progress, this process, for quite some time. I know that the financial framework also, we established a team. We got a lot of stakeholder involvement. And just scroll up a little bit more, Marie. We're just reviewing for the board and for publicly down, I guess is what I meant. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yep, be good. We had a lot of key dates going back to February 12th, 2024 with an initial meeting. We checked in with consultants, we met with focus groups, we presented to the board, we updated the board, we discussed design and alignment with UCAP. The operational framework, also just a lot of process work has gone into that. So this is a document we just wanted to highlight for you because the people have been the most driving part of this. But then also the process has been one that hasn't been overnight. It's been a long, arduous, stakeholder-driven process. The next document, Marie, if you could just briefly pull up, is just the board documents, the board meetings. And I think it just, here it is, it just puts in one spot, if anybody ever wanted to go back to the history, I don't advise it to anybody. But if you wanted to go back and be like, did we talk about this in any of our meetings? What kinds of conversations were taking place? This really catalogs that this board, and I know some new board members are just orienting themselves to this work. But nonetheless, the board as a whole body has been meeting about this, getting updates about this work, and then also sharing input on how to move the work forward with a variety of different action items along the way. So all we wanted to do is just reference this for you, so that you as you kind of get to the place where you may take vote on this. You know that there's been multiple people involved. You know who some of those people have been. Even the Institute may recognize our work and their work with us at the A-Game convening, because so much of the A-Game has come into this particular work. We wanted to show you the process one more time. We wanted to publicly state that this has gone through a very stakeholder-driven process, and also that it's been on multiple board meetings. There have been so many opportunities for so many different people to interact with this work. And so that is something that we wanted to highlight. If you go back to the PowerPoint slide, it gives me just a few bullet points presenting. We definitely were involved with LEAs throughout the process, and they were part of the people in focus groups and other areas. And then the work also included the public. We did follow statute and opened up a 30-day public opportunity to review and comment on it. We didn't get any, that's okay. We did give some reminders to groups that we thought might be good to get one more chance, like LEA operators and board members. But the public 30-day posting period went out. It's closed, and there is not a summary of findings or a summary of anything, and that's okay. We have met our statutory obligations to in fact post those things. So then the policy, just wanted to highlight a few things specific to the policy. And one of them is going to be criteria ratings in the operations and financials. So one of the documents that's most important of all those documents that are out there publicly and in your board materials is the accountability framework policy. And that's what I think Maria is going to pull up next, is the document that's called the accountability framework policy. And with a policy on page 4, I believe it is, and you have already adopted the policy in nearly its entire state. Roughly 6 months, 8 months ago. But there's a section at this bottom of this page, it starts, and it's called performance criteria ratings. And it's just nice to highlight this for the board before we start discussing and voting to approve it or not, and then implementation. But for 2 of the frameworks, both the financial and operational frameworks, they operate based on a performance criteria. And that criteria either allows for meeting or not meeting. And so there's a whole host of metrics both for the operational framework and then also for the financial framework. They're in this packet. They're in other packets that you have been privy to throughout the course of this process and as it closed out in the last 30 days. But we thought it'd be good just to say, you know, for two of these performance measure accountability frameworks, the operation and financial, there's a performance criteria of meeting or not meeting. Now, those lead into, if you scroll down again a little bit, designations. And the academic framework is the only framework that jumps right to a designation. It does not operate using the aforementioned designation criteria part. It just goes right to a designation. And so you've been able to review this. We've engaged in this work, and there's new schools, exceeds expectations, meets expectations, reviews, and then active engagement. This little matrix here on page 5, we think does a nice job that also demonstrates that these scroll up just a little bit, Marie. Thank you. You're so good at designations are also for the operation and the financial frameworks. And so after the first part, then they get a designation. And so in order for a school to be designated in the operational area, the new school, we'll take an easy one. They need to be a school in year 1 or year 2 of operation. We'll take another one just as an example. In order for a school to be designated as meets expectations in the financial area, they'd have to meet all but one of those performance criteria that I referenced just a couple minutes ago. And in order for a school, and scroll down for the last example, I'm just pulling out a few. In order for a school to be designated as being an active engagement academically, you'd have to be according to one of those pathways, either 9% or less, or choosing one of the other pathways, a 9% or less, plus the mission specific outcome, or an alternative pathway number 3. That one's the most complex, but yes, creative and innovative is the academic, which is why we spent a lot of our time in previous meetings discussing those aspects. So this we thought was a helpful just review of the designations and then also of the performance criteria in 3 of the areas. So if you could go back to the PowerPoint slide, I'm nearly done just kind of giving an overview. We really think that this implementation, which was a part of board packet materials and also the 30 review, is a really good place to jump. If this is board approved, it could cause a lot of like, oh boy, we're like doing this. And we absolutely are doing this, but we're doing it according to a 5-year plan. And that 5-year plan is an communications and an implementation plan. Year 1 is heavy on the data collection. Okay, so year 1, we're really collecting the data, sharing that data, communicating how that data works within the context of the accountability framework. We also see that year 1 data collection can be really critical for the operational annual assurance certification. You know, really getting the board chairs and the boards to own the assurance certification for a thing like background checks for all employees is a critical part of our work going forward. And so we really view that as being important. I missed the policy part, which is the oversight model and oversight committee. If we were to, I don't think you need to, Marie, because I think everybody has that visual kind of the triangle of our oversight model. But it'll be the work of our oversight committee to see how schools are performing based on data in the different designations, and then to use the oversight model for things such as notice of concern, which is a staff-driven initiative, or a warning, which is a board-driven or some other type of tool within the oversight model. And so that's where the oversight committee is starting to gear up just kind of for those discussions and how we use the data in the accountability framework to actually implement and use the oversight model. Yeah, it is helpful
I
to
was
pull
like,
it
we
up.
want to pull it.
Yeah, good.
We're ready.
So then that leads to what staff believes in the PowerPoint as being a possible action item. And so if back to the PowerPoint, we tried to create one that was as simple and straightforward as possible. Given that that these people have been involved for over a year in this process with a lot of board review and input, having successfully gone through the 30-day public period. With those main things back in your mind, we know you don't eat, sleep, and everything like staff does on these things, but those were some of the highlights again to kind of orient you back to this. We would suggest that the board consider approving and adopting the accountability framework as presented. It was presented in a 30-day public notice that was mirrored in your board materials. Our process, when we talk about process, as a staff, we've tried to really hone in on 3 aspects. And as the board, we've talked about these 3 things. A process includes a policy, procedures, and forms. All of those things were the collection of the documentation that was publicly posted, and then also for you in the board materials. There are some other associated practices, such as like a communication and implementation plan. So we hope for that. We also understand if you have more work to go, we get that too. And we would be eager to do the work. We take your direction, board. We would do this in a suggested motion, working with USDE, really closely with them. LEAs, of course, we don't want to freak out any LEAs. Like, here we go, here we come. No, there's an implementation to this. We're collecting data in the first year and also other stakeholders towards full implementation. This has been a real fun project for us, as much hard work as it's been, and we think a really critical part for the future. So that concludes just kind of staff overview. Turn it back to you, Chair, for any discussion and possible action related to the accountability framework.
Thank you. So as Dr. Kramer talked about, it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us. We've had some really good discussions over a long period of time. And an appropriate period of time, and each of our team members have presented their sections and talked about what they're doing and how they do that. And that we formally put this on a 30-day review. So we're at that place without any comment back, other than probably all along the way comments and ways folks have shaped things as they've looked at it. We're ready for a motion. So I will be happy to entertain a motion if you're ready.
I actually have a clarifying question.
Please.
On page 5, the designation, is it a designation in each area or an overall designation?
Each area.
So you could have a 1, or I mean a 2 and a 5
Correct.
simultaneously.
Yes,
And then what,
for each framework.
so if you got a 2, we would leave you alone in that area, but if you got a 5 in the other area, that would trigger,
Active
you need some support
engagement.
in that one area.
Correct.
Okay, no overall rating.
No overall rating.
Thank you.
Correct. Mhm.
Thank you. Good question to clarify. Are you ready for a motion? Other questions?
Chair,
Member Businger, go ahead.
I struggle the most to make the motions, but I'm happy to do that and just read this. So I would make a motion that we approve and adopt the accountability framework process as presented in a 30-day public notice, which includes the policy, procedures, forms, and other associated practices, and to work with USBE, LEAs, and other stakeholders towards full implementation.
What a great motion. You did just a great job.
I would be happy to second that fantastic motion.
And a second from member Cisneros, a motion and a second further discussion relative to that motion. Not seeing any, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of that excellent motion, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm seeing that's a unanimous vote, so go forward. This is start implementing. I know you say start, you've already started, but you started in that process, so now you just get to formally continue and help schools to be a part of that, and it will be really helpful, I
I
think, for
want
all
to
of us.
say a big thank you to
Yeah.
everyone. I can
Yeah.
feel the energy at this moment.
Quiet.
But so good. Yes.
It's taken a while, huh?
Yes, it has.
A lot of work. And it really, I think you're gonna find what a great communication tool as well.
That's right.
For schools to know what's expected and how to get better. You can't hit all the pins down in the bowling alley if you put a curtain halfway down the lane and you can't see it. And this removes the curtain, it makes sure you can say, okay. Then you get that dang little sign that comes up and says pin 1 and 4 still have to go. Right? So you have to do those, but at least we can all see it and do it the same. So it's great. Thank you. All right. Dr. Kramer, continue. We have some budget items, and this is that time of year when you have to reconcile where your budget has, this is what we proposed, and this is kind of where we came out, and this is what we're proposing for the ensuing year, and all that has to be done, I think statutorily by June, maybe prior to the June 12th meeting, so that's why we're doing it today, so.
That sounds good. I think, thank you, Chair, for the 10:50 agenda item, we're a little bit behind on, so I think I can move quicker through that agenda item. And Marie, if you could pull up that one spreadsheet that's called budget versus actual. And the financial committee had this and a lot more information at their fingertips when we were discussing this. One of the, if not the biggest cost, is personnel. If you just go to that first tab, Marie, thank you so much. Lisa did an amazing job, calculating out our estimated personnel costs. And you can see that she includes benefits as well. And so our estimated personnel expenses through the end of the year is that 308,396 right there. And there's enough budget to support that. There's 417,632.62. So the difference between what was budgeted for personnel and then what was both actual and estimated until the end of the year shows that we have not gone over budget in this particular area. We're actually under budget by a little more than 100K. That's okay. We brought in some great people a little later than what we thought. One left a little, so there was some changes, some fluctuation that occurred there. And you always want to come in under than over, certainly. That feeds into that next tab. And that next tab shows us at a high level. We won't go into all the detail, but at a high level, as reviewed with the finance committee, that personnel came up to the top. We actually have some professional tech services that we're probably not going to be using. Some attorney fees, these are proactive attorney fees. We're not holding back on paying for attorneys. We had more in the budget to use proactively. And it doesn't look like we're going to get there in this fiscal year. And it also doesn't look like we're going to purchase new laptops in this fiscal year. We're going to defer that to fiscal year 26. That gives us under budget by 275,000. That is a good thing actually this year. In the finance committee, we talk a lot about the legislative one-time reduction. And the legislative one-time reduction is 307,800. And let's say that we didn't have that 275, 307, we would feel ourselves really pinched right now. But instead, when we learned of that one-time reduction, we slowed up a little bit on some things. Because what we have heard is that the legislative one-time reduction will come from fiscal year 25. I know finance committee, we were talking that it may or may not, but they have now, as of a few days ago, said it will come from 25. That shows that when they do take it, we do anticipate going over a little bit, but everybody knows we're gonna go over a little bit. We made it clear, both in our meetings with USDE, and then also now publicly, we've made it clear that we understand because of legislative one-time reduction that will be over budget. Because of that, the USB recoding to previous carry forward years. And so they'll take, let's just say it lands at 32,667. They'll take 32,667 of 25 expenses and move them into the carry forward budgets, which we still have some healthy balances. And that is one thing that the legislative committee also analyzed, is that we've done well with the delta on that, but we haven't eliminated carry forward balances. So all things considered, when you kind of work through the fiscal year 25 budget versus actual, performed really well. Both staying within budget and then also being able to accommodate the one-time reduction, and also having the resources to do our work. We never felt strapped this year or felt like we didn't have enough to do the good work that we have. It did not. We're grateful for the funds that we have. So that really just concludes staff presentation on the budget to actual.
Why don't you just continue right into 26 budget?
Sounds good. And there are some finance committee recommendations that come after this presentation. So we'll refer to this draft budget here. Thank you, Marie. So with the fiscal year 26 draft budget, one of the things that's really important to note is that between the 24 and 25 year, we consolidated one of the programs. And you may recall that, you may not recall that, but it simplifies. So instead of managing, when we first started, Marie and I were managing 6 different programs. We now are at a place where with USBE's recommendations and our finance committee's recommendations, we can manage 3 programs going forward. And that really does simplify things. Then we'll have a charter school board program. That's all the revenue and the expenses associated with the work, like the administration and board work. We have training and mentoring that used to be two $200,000 buckets. And in the fiscal year 26 draft, it would be collapsed to just be one $400,000 amount. And then startup funds, which has different ways of spending those startup funds: new schools, satellite schools, large school expansion, small school expansion, and innovation grants. But we view this as being really a great thing, is to take these programs and collapse them into 3 very easy to understand and very easy to manage. We've cut it in half over time. We also, if you recall, and again, the finance committee was asking amazing questions and really engaged at a high level on some back-to-back meetings a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, I can't remember. But there's, if you scroll down a little bit more, Marie, this changed fiscal year 25 budget and you compare it to the fiscal year 26 budget. You do see that $200,000 kind of in the middle of the screen there. That's what I was just referencing, what will be mentoring and training bucket of money, PGB money. But you also see that 214 pass-through went down. And if you compare that with what's being proposed, that's the indirect cost pool that we in fiscal year 26 will not be a part of, because of our moving out of the building, and then also not having the same level of services. We still get services, we still get, they're in charge, in fact, and so we enjoy all the services of the USBE being ultimately in charge of things. But that 214 moves into the current expense. So you can see there's an increase to current expense. And so that is for things like the IT services that we used to enjoy through the indirect cost pool. Now has to be done on our own through a third-party provider or that something like that. You also will note that the in-state travel increases, and then that the travel out of state increases. We do a lot of in-state travel going into schools, and we also are doing more presentations and be nominated for awards and just enjoying professional development in places other than Utah. You scroll back up to the top, I'm nearly done presenting. It is a USBE program approved budget. So this is what they gave to us in a more elaborate spreadsheet. And the only things that we are proposing is those shifts in the in-state and out-of-state travel to increase it. They're okay with those, what's called category changes. The personnel more than adequately supports our current staff and even allows us to look at the addition of staff. And so we're pleased by the personnel amount. It's a very right on budget, not too little and not too much. And so we're really pleased with USBE to us at a high level. And then we have those few category changes that are kind of outlined. The next tab there does give some finance committee recommendations. And just the, number one is that the USB recommended consolidating the CHB and the CHFA PGA programs into a single program called CHBD. That's consistent with the similar action that was taken between fiscal year 24-25, and the finance committee also suggested. Finance committee, I took your suggestion to them and they concurred that it would be really good to collapse the CHMT and the CHRG into one program called PGB, and that's a $400,000 both revenue and expense. The USD really liked that idea. And then the committee in fiscal year 25, they were recommending that we just be public about that we're going to go over a little bit. And we asked some questions about that one-time legislative reduction to be allowed from CHBD 25 funds. That's how we're going to get to be absolutely net neutral. We're not going to be 1 penny over or 1 penny under this year because of the legislative one-time reduction. Any remaining needs are kind of going to be covered by carry forward balances just in an accounting way. They'll shift those expenses to carry forward instead of just taking it. We communicated these things already with them. Everybody knows that we are within budget, both in our private meeting, or not private, but in our meetings, but also now publicly. And so the committee was well versed on that one and really helpful thinking that through as well. And then the one in the center, probably the most important to keep things on schedule. And that's that the committee recommends adopting the fiscal year 26 budget that was given to us by USBE at the program level. They really need us to stay within the programs. If we are looking to go outside of those programs, that's gonna be a bigger conversation. We don't need to go outside of those programs based on the committee's recommendations, staff's analysis. There are those minor adjustments in category levels. Those minor adjustments for travel, in-state, out-of-state travel were really the kind of the biggest ones there. And that this board then adopt it, because then it would move into USBE's meeting in June 5th is their next meeting. And that would become the budget for fiscal year 26. So finance committee, any other thoughts? I didn't mean to speak for you for sure. I did not, but I also want to organize it to what you were leading us towards.
No, I think that was a good summary.
If you go back to the budget year 26, this would be what would be approved is the fiscal year 26 draft budget from USBE with a few category changes would be the one that we would like for the board to consider then.
Let's start with any questions or discussion that you'd like to have, or questions you have for Dr. Kramer first before we proceed. All right, then you're hoping for a motion then that we would adopt this 26 budget. I'm ready to entertain a motion if anyone's ready to offer one.
Thanks, Chair. I move that we go ahead and approve the fiscal year 2026 draft budget based on what was presented from USBE, but with the category changes that has been presented in board meeting today.
Thank you, Member Olson. A motion to adopt that budget and the clarity that he gave to that motion. Is there a second to that motion? And a second from Member Bassett. Any additional discussion that Good overview. All those in favor then of the motion, say aye. Aye. And that is a unanimous vote again. And so thank you for that. And you have money to use for the next year. Which is pretty important. When July 1 hit, either we continue or we don't. So there we go. We've got one in place. All right, now one that we've waited for, and I think we're right close to on time, are we? My watch will behave right on time. So we are have looked forward to this. This is such a I think this is kind of celebration and exciting and kind of is a nice collaboration. And so happy about that. We have this opportunity now to talk about Moab Charter School this transfer to Athenian Academy, really this partnership then in this working together. I don't know who's going to lead that
There's
discussion.
3 parts. One would be, Marie, you're taking the first part, I believe. So our associate executive director will lead out. Then we're thinking that Moab Charter would speak. I think there's some representation,
Yeah,
and then Athenium would speak.
So thank you all for finding your way here and
Chair.
part of that. Yes, sir.
I need to make a disclosure here. In my professional firm, we have worked with Athenian Academy in the past. And have been asked to provide some supportive work on this particular situation.
All right.
So
So you'll
I'm happy.
recuse yourself.
I'm gonna recuse from voting. I'm happy to comment just on factual things, but I
Great.
want to make that
Thank
disclosure.
you. And we appreciate still your expertise here with us at this board and understand why you would recuse yourself from vote. So let's begin then. So welcome all of you and let's start with Dr. Stephenson. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like we could probably quote this intro at this point. We've seen it a few times now. But just a reminder, this does come as allowable from statute. So it's 53G5502, section 8 there. And that says that a charter school that has not entered into a school improvement process may voluntarily provide a proposal to the authorizer for consideration to transfer the operation and control of their charter school to, and then it lists those 4 different places that they could transfer it to: a school district, a governing board of another charter school, a private management company, or the governing board of a nonprofit corporation. And so today we're going to be hearing from Moab Charter School. So that's the governing board that has not entered the school improvement process. And they are voluntarily providing that proposal for your consideration for operation and control of their school to Athenian Academy. That would be the governing board of another charter school. And so that's what you will be entertaining between today and next month as well.
Dr. Cribb.
Awesome way to launch it. And then we did receive a written proposal. It came a little bit late yesterday to us to be able to get it into board materials. These 2 organizations have been collaborating, talking, taking board action, which we now have in hand. We just couldn't circulate it. We may cast it on screen. We may.
Got it ready.
Okay, got it. It's ready for this board, because that's kind of the best we could do today is cast the written proposal for the 2 organizations on the screen. I believe it's been signed and countersigned now by both. If not, it's very close to being signed and countersigned. So that's just a little bit more information as we launch this agenda item. And then it is on this agenda as a discussion. Our executive committee set it up as a discussion and possible action item. We could see this again in the June meeting if the board kind of likes more information or views that gives more process. Also, action could be taken the way that it is written up here today. In that if there's enough information, it is getting closer to the end of the year and closer to the end of the fiscal year. Even USBE really has a lot of work to do to make these transactions work out in their systems. And so the board may consider, okay, we see the vision, we know things are pending. So we just wanted to lay out those opportunities for the board as you take in the presentation, okay? It could be discussion that leads to a June 10th, or it could be an action item as well. So
So the action can be taken
can be
today,
taken,
Yeah.
could be taken.
and that's how we have it listed, I think, as a
That's why you have.
discussion action item.
Yep.
Yeah, right. So who's?
Moab, how many are here, for Moab?
Royce?
Great, Royce, yeah.
Would you like, since we're also close,
Yes.
how about instead of getting up and coming on the end and in front of the screen? Just go, we'll just turn, and you guys just talk from where you are.
Here's the.
That'll work.
capture and. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Royce Van Tassel, I'm the Vice Chair, Moab Charter School. And I will offer one caveat to what, Paul just said. We did, put together, a proposal. And that was done though really with just myself and, our chair. The full board hasn't had a chance, so our take final action in June, our full board. We would like all of them to vote on that in our May meeting, which will be like 2 weeks, probably
Right.
2 weeks from today.
That makes
So
sense.
just that caveat. I joined the board 4 or 5 years ago. I honestly don't remember. Moab has been has faced some challenges for some time. At one point, enrollment there was 120. Frankly, at 120, that's a really healthy place for Moab. Enrollment has slid for a number of reasons. We've actually seen a number of folks who have moved into the homeschool space over the last 5 or 8 years. And we have not really figured out the right way to bring some of those students back. We got as low as probably 2 years ago. Our enrollment ended the year at around 60, and that is not at all healthy. The COVID funds sort of allowed us to slide by for a few years. I discovered after joining the board that my predecessors had made some choices which I would not have, which is to say that there was COVID funds that were used for salaries. As you can imagine, that creates some very difficult conversations. And now all of that really comes to a head last year. We have had as a board and with the administration had extensive conversations about what is it that we can or need to do to get our enrollment to a healthier place, particularly where you've had employees that had an expectation of a higher salary, and then the money just is literally, it's not there. And so that was made for some really tough conversations last year. And some of you will recall, we explored a merger a year ago. But decided that we would look to and see if there were ways internally that we could turn that corner. And we did get enrollment as high as about 75 or 78. Right now, I think we're at 71 or 72. And that picture has been fairly consistent the last couple of years. But even to maintain, we genuinely we need to be at least at 85. And we just haven't found that. Now, the families that are there find great value. And so it's a terrible thing to say, we're just going to go away. And that's why, as a board, we have had a lot of conversations and said, we feel like a merger is the right direction to go. So we've had a lot of conversations, Jared Ferguson and I, and Tanner Rubin, who is the chair. I mean, it's important that you know that Tanner is the chair and I am the vice chair. I had been the chair for some time But it's important, especially in a circumstance like this, to have local representation that are the leaders, you know. I love to go to Moab. You don't really have to give me an excuse to go to Moab. I'm willing to go. It's a really tough sacrifice. But my relationship with the community is necessarily different. And so last year I stepped back as the vice chair. And Tanner took over as the chair, which was challenging for him because he was new to the board. But having had those conversations, we as a board feel very strongly that we're going to be able to continue this. I mean, frankly, the budget that we're looking at for next year, if nothing changes, going into the hole a couple $100,000. That's what we were looking at this year. That's simply not sustainable. And so we want to make sure that this opportunity continues. And we feel very good that becoming part of Athenian is the right way. They have a track record of successfully running what really amount to micro charter schools throughout rural Utah. And that's what Moab is. I mean, you know, there's a lot of visitors there. Last time I was down there, it was the car show. And I'm pretty confident there were more visitors than there were residents. I know that was true at Dead Horse when I was there that Friday night. So we've put something proposal together. But that we took a motion at our last meeting to open negotiations. The proposal that you have reflects that. And I am as close to certain as you can get that the board will say, yes, this is definitely what we want to do. There's a process. We need your permission. And we assume that you are going to have some questions for us. You're going to have questions for Jared and his team. So that's what I have to say. And I assume you want to hear from Jared because he knows more than I do.
Right, we would love to hear that. Thank you for that overview, and also this board that would want your board to approve first before we would take action, and so thank you for saying that, so we do it. Jared, if you'd like to go ahead, we'd love to.
You bet. So I'm Jared Ferguson. I'll step in Royce's place because that's he's been meeting. No, I'm good. So I'm Jared Ferguson. I came to Athenian Academy about 5.5 years ago. I worked in Provo School District for 22.5 years. Been a school administrator, teacher, been a district administrator for a long time. Then went to CAS, and Rebecca helped when I went there to help grow that school. So I really appreciate that help. It's a fun venture. But then came to this school because they were struggling a little bit. So in the past 5.5 years, I've been able to learn a lot about rural schools and rural communities. I did some chair work for concurrent enrollment in the past, worked with rural communities, and it was always interesting because we always tried to get people from the Wasatch Front and Salt Lake area to travel to those rural communities. They'd always say it's too far. But they would travel frequently to the Wasatch Front.
Yeah.
But I've always had a passion and a respect for rural communities and a belief that they need an opportunity to have choice. And when I came to this school, that was something that I saw. There's a lot of heart in these rural communities, but there's not a lot of resources. And so it's a difficult thing. I think one of the ways to achieve an economy of scale between these rural communities is to kind of band together and form a bigger unit. So I appreciate my staff. I have a really supportive staff. You see, I have 3 of my directors here today to support, and we've been able to pull together and really work out what we feel like is an improving and ever improving and growing better model. So that being said, too, we are fortunate that when COVID hit, we had a blended education type structure, which allowed us to kind of combine the homeschool parents' interests with a more traditional model and educate students in that way. And we're still working out the kinks. And parents that have a lot of say and voice in their students' education, it creates a different set of challenges. We're still working on that, but we've been able to do well. We're in system improvement for reading. We got through that. We're working on math, and that's our next kind of area that we're focused on. And we've got firm strategy in place and an academic director that's really incredibly dedicated with a good track record of success. So we feel pretty confident that we can take Moab. I was able to travel there with two of my staff, special education director and blended education director, on not last Monday, but the Monday before last. And we were able to visit with all of the staff. I respect and understand the staff's concerns. That school, I think, has been there for 20 years or more. There's a long history. I want to honor that history. I don't expect to come over and my school's name over the top. See my school's name below. It says, this is a Moab charter school division of Indiana schools. I think we can work together. I think they've got some really incredibly talented staff. I think they're doing some good things, but I think they need help. And one of the things we can do is incorporate a blended education model. We have space on the campus. I saw kids that look just like our kids. Children who are somewhat at risk. And I was able to talk to those children and really review some of their special education records and look at some things there and make sure that we can take on some of the roles that they've been for better lack of better farming out or contracting out rather to other staff. And so I think we can do that. So with that, I think we can achieve that again, that economy of scale for them and help. I think our goal would be to get the school in the black on its own, but we also see that we're stable enough as a large enough school that we can support them through their challenges and tougher times. I also saw a school that's mostly in portable units. And I'm very familiar with that challenge as well. And those portable units are in various states, and some of them need some significant repair. So I think that's one of the things we need to look at right away, is making sure the campus is safe and good repair for the students. But I really feel like those children need an opportunity to continue. So that's kind of where we are. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Anyone else whom we should hear, or do you have questions or you want to ask Member Cisneros?
Yeah, and in fact, Director Ferguson, what were the staff concerns that Moab staff members expressed to you?
I think the biggest concern is well, the biggest concern they had that they brought forward was uniforms.
Okay.
We heard from virtually everyone there, are you gonna make the kids wear uniforms? And we said, well, let me tell you, we told their philosophy behind uniforms, that it's hard to tell the haves from the have-nots when everybody's in a uniform. And I want to be sensitive to that community. There's a lot of people that struggle. But what we said is it's not a hill we're gonna die on. There are things we can negotiate, and uniforms would be one of those things, especially for a year or two until we see how things work, and you guys see if you have a vision or have interest in pursuing that. It's a big stumbling block. The other thing, I think, were their jobs. I think that was the other thing, which I completely understand. I said, I can't guarantee jobs. I want to study people's roles and see what you do, and I may ask you to do some more things for the entire school, or I may ask you to take on some additional roles. We think we could save some money through vendors and being able to provide some things in-house a little bit more. That's some supplies, but it's difficult to make promises about specific jobs, and I understand that. So that would be something we'd be studying, looking at, and I think that's their biggest fear.
Yeah, it's probably worth me offering some color there as well. Because that latter point around jobs and salaries is unquestionably the pushback that we got last year. None of that is a surprise. We the community, it's tough to live in Moab. It's a lot like being in Park City, because the public employee can't pay as much for a house as I can pay for the Airbnb. And so that does present some very real challenges. They've been able to succeed. There's a lot of households, two income households. That, I'm 100% certain. We stay on the current path, it's all the jobs go away, I wish it were different. I made the motion coming out of the executive session to do that. And afterwards, I told the director, Carrie Ann, I said, I know you're not happy with this, but I did this so that the school can survive. And I wish I saw a different way path forward. We have spent a lot of ways to drive the student body that we need to pay that. And I think Jared and his team have experience doing this, and frankly, we don't. And part of our hope and what you heard in terms of the blended education that they offer is part of what we saw as very attractive. There are opportunities to make life easier for the families that said, hey, we want to be a homeschool, but it turns out being a homeschool parent is a lot harder. And so the partnership that Athenian offers, I think, can work out well for a much larger segment. The OAP student population, MCS can offer by itself.
So much, and thank you for doing it now, because, and for that question. And those responses, as soon as we can do it, the earlier we can do it, the individuals can make employment decisions based on that, is, it gives them more opportunity to do that, so that's helpful. I love rural Utah. My first teaching job was in Monticello, so an hour south of home, and it was a long time ago, before a lot of you were born. So I'll tell you, my first contract was $7,000 for a year, and I was very happy to get it at that time. Yeah. But I don't know if that would be in
Was
today's
chalk invented
dollars.
at that point, or was that?
Was it what?
Was chalk invented at that point, or was that still in the future?
Yeah, it was pretty close. We were still using stone tablets. Thank you, Liz.
Tim, I had two additional, if I can be indulged.
Yes, please.
It's been danced around. Can we just, what amount of debt is being transferred, and what's the plan to absorb that? Can you absorb it?
We owe just over $500,000 on the building. And then it's a USDA loan that goes out, I think its final repayment is around 2042 or 2043. So that is not the issue. I mean, honestly, if the school closed, you'd have to sell the land. The land it's a prime piece of property.
It's right down.
If you've ever driven to the Sand Flats recreation area, you passed. It's a prime piece of property, so that is not the issue. It's the operational ongoing that's the issue.
I can add to that, just from a factual basis. Yeah, I'm saying that it's just over 500,000. It's being funded currently with a USDA loan, 3.5%. Annual payment is just under $37,000. So that has been, and it matures in 2043.
Yeah.
You mentioned that. So that's been modeled, and at least from the initial analysis, I think Athenian Academy is well positioned to take that on, either on an annual payment. I think there's going to be some discussion with USDA on whether that can be transferred over. There's not a lot of precedence there. So I think the hope for outcome is that it can, but if it cannot, there's been some contingent plans that have already been laid as far as combination of maybe just paying that off straightforward, or seeking and belief is that with the equity value the operational strength of Athenian relative to that amount of debt, that there's really not a concern there.
And my final, sorry, and I am not saying this snarkily or cheekily or as a dig or anything. But Roy Shubin quoted as saying that closure is a feature,
Yep.
not a bug.
Yep.
And so if this, why is it time for like, is the public speaking and it's just time, or is this really the? Cause if Athenian takes it and you still don't get enrollment, you still are in the hole operationally, then is the group prepared to accept that as a feature?
So I don't know the answer to the last question. You're right, closing is a feature of charter schools, not a bug. It's always painful. And rural Utah, I was really surprised. I've been around the choice world for a long time here in Utah. Up until the last 5 years, I would have said that the hostility to charter schools, to the extent that it continues, and there are pockets of it where hostility is the right word, would have been strongest in rural Utah. And we did some survey work in 2019 and then again in 2023, and came back with just some genuinely shocking results. Still can't make sense of it, but we saw it in both the qualitative and in the quantitative research. And it was that rural Utah is desperate for choices. And that's even more surprising when you recognize that online education offers some of those choices, and Utah has a rich array of those online choices. And yet families are aware of that and they still want something else. So I think there is something that Moab offers that is genuinely valuable. There are clearly folks that want something else. And I think that Athenian is well positioned to do that. But you're right, if 3 years from now, it's X number, Jared finds that he's still in the black, or excuse me, still in the red. Yeah, then I think things are pretty clear. Now, whether he wants to make that decision, that's up to him and his board. But I still see an opportunity here.
Both boards still need to vote, or has one? Okay.
My board has voted to explore this as well, and go to negotiations. I do have a board member online, David Nielsen, who's been with our board a long time. I think, you can ask David if he supports it, but I think we still need to vote as an entire board.
And that's probably just for us to hear that in June.
Yeah.
We'll just checking to see.
We believe, with the blended education model, that's the fastest growing model in our school. And we believe with, with what we've seen and what we've heard from Moab, that there's a growing number of homeschool parents that maybe like some support. That there is a contingency there that we could maybe appeal to and get some students there. And I don't think it's, like Roy says, I don't think it's a large number of students that we really need to bring back, and we've got space on the campus to do that, which is really nice, because the parents don't like that, they can potentially go back to the other model. So it's really nice.
And just by what we described, there are across the nation schools that we call in Utah nest schools that are charter schools. That those are those nest schools that are rural schools have all been converted to charter schools. So we're giving families lots of opportunity and choice, and that is a model across the nation that's working really well. I just said that's something Utah should continue to explore by. But yeah.
Would you mind if I just say something?
Not at all.
Okay, I guess I'll stand up.
I
So, my name is Zach Hancock, I'm student services for Athenian. So to kind of answer your question a little bit, we've had to do a lot of reallocation of resources of where we're at. We have a little tiny campus out in Delta, Utah. And Delta is a very, I don't want to be sensitive too, but a dying community, right? And so we've seen the population really kind of go down, but we've also seen like out in the basin, Roosevelt, Vernal, where it has grown. And that's where we've kind of put our resources in, as well as Tremont. So we're growing at a really exponential rate with our growth, that we're not at our cap yet. And so I think we can reallocate resources if need be. But I think Moab with the model we talked about is primed to grow.
Fabulous. Thank you for asking. Thank you for adding that. That's school sometime. Yeah, yeah, that really would then balance.
The desire for choices, in the focus groups that we did down in Sanpete County, came through even stronger than, and you know, you wouldn't expect that, let's be honest. Sanpete County is as tight-knit a community as you can get. And the reason my experience says that people opposed any form of choice in education was that when your child makes a choice, you're taking money out of your cousins or your aunts or your sister's pocket. That seems to have disappeared. And they're just like, I want to find something that works. It's not that they're rejecting what Sanpete School District offers. They're saying there's an opportunity that I want.
Yeah.
And I can't find it.
And I'm here, you're saying you want that for those families in Moab.
Absolutely. Grand County is wonderful.
It is.
And they want choices like the rest of us.
Right. Additional comments or questions from the board at all? Thank you for all of you for your comments, for being here today. And I know this board will look forward to entertaining those motions, and based on your both boards' decisions. If I were here in June, I would right now say. But you.
You're just, oh, sorry,
You
it will be
all-
on my shoulder.
I love how he's getting prods
You
at
all
the end.
make that decision as you come back in June. And I know a lot of it will be contingent on, you know, the endorsement of both of these boards, which is really important. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that overview and for helping us to consider now for another month that question. All right, y'all, and Providence Hall is online. I see that Providence Hall logo there. And I'm suspecting that, oh, yeah, and it even says Nate Marshall, who I already took your name in vain earlier today, Nate, just so you know. But here we go. It wasn't in vain. It was praising you, but here we go. So, today, as a reminder, and I guess are you the overview?
I can introduce,
Yeah,
yep.
go ahead. I'll let you do that instead of jumping in right now. You go
Thank
ahead.
you, Chair. All right, well, back in the spring of 2022, Providence Hall came to our board and requested a material change to their charter. And that material change was removing the International Baccalaureate Program, or IB, from their secondary grades. And they talked about a number of challenges with the IB program, especially related to the credit that students were earning and how it was accepted at some of the Utah universities and colleges, and just the low participation rate as well that they were seeing from their students. And so they brought all of this data and presented that to the board. They wanted to introduce Patriot pathways that was specific to their school, as well as introducing additional honors classes, AP, concurrent enrollment, and CTE courses. And so our board gave them a 3-year provisional approval of this material change that they were asking for. And you asked Providence Hall to report back no later than June of 2025 on the status and success of this material change. And so they're coming to give you that report today, and they would like to request the continuation of this amendment, which would then move it into an ongoing material change away from the IB program, which would be then added into their charter agreement.
So great. I can't believe it's been 3
I
years.
know, that's what I was thinking.
3 years has passed quickly. All
Yeah.
right. So Nate, we'll turn it to you.
Appreciate it. I have Melissa McPhail. She's the principal at our high school. And then Chris Winfrey is the principal over at our junior high. And then Kim Crandall, our board chair, is on as well. She's connected virtually as well. Marie did a great job of giving just a great synopsis of the change that was made. Our elementary school still has the IB program, but our junior high did change to the Pathways program. We'll give kind of a general overview of what that looks like and how we've implemented it into our school. And then the high school shifted from the IB DP program to the AP Scholars program, as well as leaned into CTE and CE offerings that we currently have and continue to grow, as well as some internal changes that kind of align with who we are. Again, as part of this is a reporting and accountability, was asked to come back and just kind of talk a little bit about how this has gone and how it kind of aligns with our charter and specifically our inquiry-based and analytical approach to our educational system. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Our elementary K through 5 follows the primary years program for the IB, and we'll go through the Patriot Pathways program and the AP Scholars program, as well as our college and career readiness offerings here in just a second. Our junior high pathways program, as we talked about this change 3 years ago, one thing that we really wanted to focus on was that inquiry-based and experiential learning approach. And the IB kind of sets it up really well at the elementary school. And we wanted to offer that opportunity to our junior high to be able to continue to kind of implement our mission statement of think critically, communicate effectively, and act responsibly through more of a hands-on approach and allowing students to kind of think about courses or offerings that kind of align with their interests and really allow students to do some hands-on things that kind of align with some of their career or college and career interests or just their overall interests. And so that's what we kind of came up with the Pathways program. So I'm going to turn the time over to Chris, who's our principal at the junior high, and he's going to talk a little bit more about those.
Yeah, so as Mr. Marshall mentioned, the Pathways program is really designed to give students an opportunity to explore their interests. As we have our daily schedule designed, students have a lot of opportunities to try different electives. And the idea being that in the junior high level, 6, 7, and 8, we want them to have opportunities to really explore their interests and maybe kind of narrow down things that they really enjoy doing and maybe some things that maybe aren't as they're not as good at or aren't as important to them, and really getting hands-on and digging deeper into some of those areas. So we've created multiple pathways, and you can see there the 8 different pathways that allow students to really target specific areas. But the idea isn't necessarily that they get stuck into a specific pathway, but that they can explore multiple pathways. And we want them to really be able to identify and then lean into. If you want to try music, you've never tried it before, here's some classes that you can take that would really be able to give you a deeper dive into the possibilities of music or performing arts or hands-on robotics and engineering or leadership, or if it's academics, if that's your thing. And we want students to be able to, one, if they really love a specific area, they can follow that pathway through the 3 years, and they can receive a pin when they finish 8th grade saying they've accomplished that pathway. And then that shows that deep dive into it. Or they can look at a couple of different pathways, and they can look at the classes that are within that and say, 7th grade year, I want to take these classes in this pathway, but 8th grade, I'd like to try a different pathway. With the idea that by the time they move into 9th grade, when they're looking at those college and career readiness standards, when they're looking at potential CTE pathways or other things, they've really got an idea of who they are, what they like to do, and they can have that focus as they move into their high school years.
An additional thought, we really were very specific on how we wanted to build out these pathways so that they would align with some of the things we do at the high school. And so you'll see kind of a common thread between a lot of these pathways as they kind of shift over to the high school. And so I'll turn the time over to Ms. McPhail. She'll kind of go over the changes we made specifically to the high school.
Hello. So we switched from IB, and we'll go over some data at the end, but
when we switched over to IB, we decided that we were gonna really stress the AP Scholar program, which the AP comes up with, but they don't advertise it very well. And so we just wanted to make sure that our students knew that these awards existed. So one of the things that we do starting in 9th grade is just let them know that these exist, and these are the different versions that they can get. And it goes from like harder to get to easier to get. And then every year we meet with them to let them know if they're on track for one of these. If you want to go to the next one. These are our CTE pathways that really do align with what they're doing over at the junior high. And I would say that I just did the ones for this year, our graduates, and I would say that between our just own Providence Hall Pathway program and the CTE ones, that usually about 60% of our kids get one. So that's pretty awesome.
And I would even add, we're part of the CTE consortium, along with several other charter schools. And we represent the biggest representation of CTE offerings in that consortium. In other words, our school provides the most pathways and the most courses. We get all 25 FTEs. So we do we have a really robust CTE program. We've spent the last 3 years really aligning our offerings, specifically with our mission statement of thinking critically, communicating effectively, and acting responsibly. I'm not going to go into all of the details on this, but at the elementary, like I said before, we really try to build that inquiry-based learning opportunity, independent thinking, decision-making. And as you can see with the Pathways program and allowing students to kind of explore different classes and do some capstone projects and really kind of focus on hopefully some areas they feel like they want to really progress. It really allows for that critical thinking to kind of expand, which then really translates into the high school program for that higher order thinking and analytical and problem solving through the AP Scholars, as well as the CTE and CE opportunities we give. We really focus on the communication side with collaborative learning, stronger verbal and written communication skills, and engaging students in a lot of community-based stuff. So we do end-of-year community-based projects at the elementary, which also translates into the junior high as part of the capstone for the Pathways program, really focusing on that interdisciplinary project and collaborative learning. And that obviously translates to the high school. And through our Act Responsibly, we want them to be internationally minded. We want them to be culturally aware. And we have very common language that translates all the way from elementary all the way to the high school. In terms of the data, as you can see, our elementary school continues to score really well when it comes to early literacy and reading on grade level, and then our typical or better improvement from year to year. So we outperform the state averages and have for the last 3 or 4 years since we presented last time. Our enrollment trends, we've typically stayed around 2,000 to 2,150 students. Our enrollment cap is 2,150. And so we tend to just fluctuate in between this. So we haven't really had a tremendous impact when it comes to enrollment, retention, or any of those data points. Our transfer rates or retention rates continue to stay kind of on par. And maybe Chris, you can kind of talk a little bit about our RISE data for the last 3 years.
Yeah, so our K8 RISE data, as we've looked at the data from 2018, but more recently within the last 3 years, we're seeing areas of growth, specifically in math, as our math department teams, they meet together and they analyze the data to determine areas of focus where we can improve. And we've been able to kind of target some specific areas in math, and we've seen some growth there. Our science, we had some really strong growth. We've dipped a little bit, but as we're looking at the scores coming through this year, we're feeling really good about the changes that we made based on the data from previous years. And then our language arts RISE data, We actually made some changes in administration of the RISE test, specifically this year, and kind of how we broke down our daily schedule. We found out that with language arts specifically, going AB, and having a test that takes 2 days, it was really difficult for the students to take the test on Monday, do something different on Tuesday, and come back and start again on Wednesday. So we made a change where we were doing AA and then BB during the test weeks, and we're actually seeing some really positive results. So we want to continue that and hopefully see that growth go up for the language arts RISE state as well.
And to Marie's point earlier on, one of the big kind of catalysts for this change was kind of our low enrollment in the IB program, and really looking at a way that could broaden our opportunities for AP and through the AP program. But I'll let Melissa talk about some of the tremendous growth we've had in our high school with our college and career readiness opportunities.
So our first batch of IB kids, it takes 2 years to get through the program, graduated in 2019. And you can see in that column, IB graduates, that wasn't the number of people that we had. No, that was the number of people no, it wasn't. That was not the total number of people in the program. They may have had like 3 more or 4 more, but those are the ones that graduated that were in the program. And while we had some AP classes or IB classes, we also had some AP classes, but we don't really like to co-see AP and IB because they do have 2 different tests. Some schools choose to do that. It was just really hard. And so really the choice of going IB limited the number of AP classes we could offer. And by doing that, we just had very few kids that were kind of taking our higher level classes. So when we made the change, because we had some higher ed changes in how they would give credits to the IB diploma, that kind of forced us to look at the program in general and say, is this the best program for our students? And one of the things that was kind of itching me was that it really limited the number of kids who could take advanced courses. So when we got rid of it, we increased the number of students who took it. So this is in 2020. You can see the number of AP students, and then go to 2024. And now you can see the total number of AP students we've had. And obviously the difference between 23 and 24 is more representative of our enrollment in general, and not just like that we went down a little bit. But we still had the same number of AP exams given that year. We're really proud of our pass rate. We had a great pass rate with IB. Some literally kind of the highest in the state. When I would meet with the other IB coordinators, they would ask me how you're doing this, and it was honestly our teachers. And because we didn't co-see IB and AP like they did. But I was so proud of our teachers making that transition and being on board with the transition from learning and teaching IB to then moving to AP. And they've done a great job. And 84% of our students pass those tests, which is really, really high. In fact, I just met with Mikkel Taylor and Christy Schreck from the state. They came out to interview my counselor and I because we're one of the few schools that made the AP school honor roll list. And with that, we also got a special designation, which was rare in the state of Utah. It's called with access. So we got an honor roll with access. And that means that we have, compared to other schools, a large number of our students who are AP exam takers are unrepresented minorities, or they're from low income. And it mirrors our overall student demographics. And so it just shows that we have an accessible program for all learners. And ultimately, that was the thing that I wanted the most, is I wanted these higher level classes to be available to all students. And last year, we were honored by the AP board for that. So that's really exciting news.
Silver,
Yeah, honor
medallion,
roll
yep.
with access. So pretty cool. And then you can see our ACT scores were the one in red. So since we've made this change, we can see that there's been some years of learning curves, and I think that's probably brought on by a little bit of COVID and online and offline stuff. And then you can see in the last couple of years, we've gone above the state performance standards. And then we have our career in college readiness coursework. that is, I don't know how, we don't even know how that's collected, but we're doing great there. And I think a lot of that is that we really advertise our CTE pathways and make sure that students feel like they can take different classes while still taking some of those AP classes. Our graduation rate's super high. ACT score is good. Is our ACT Aspire Plus data on there?
It is the next slide.
The next slide. This is the one that I'm really, really proud of. You can see that last year in math and in science that we exceeded the state, and we were right there with our language arts. And I do believe that this change is a reflection, or this is a reflection of the change we made, because IB, those kids didn't take IB classes until junior year, but with AP, they can start getting those AP classes earlier, and so they're having more access to like more rigorous curriculum. And so we can see that it's made changes to our ACT Aspire Plus data. So that's exciting. So I feel overall that this has been a better change for our school.
I'm going the wrong way, sorry.
Oh, you can talk about that.
Yeah, and so and one thing that I wanted to kind of point out is just in comparison to some of the schools that are around us, when you compare us to I guess you call the traditional high schools, you know, we outperform both on the proficiency as well as on the growth with the majority of the traditional high schools that are around us, with a few of the charter schools that we kind of performing at or above or kind of trending along the same lines as those schools. But just wanted to show that collectively at the high school level with this change that it's really provided a lot more opportunity for our students. And in terms of just the proficiency scores and the growth scores, our school is doing exceptionally well. So just in conclusion, these changes reinforce our commitment to this learning approach for inquiry-based, centered around our mission statement of Think, Communicate, Act. And we feel like this change has been not just beneficial for the high school students, but has really been beneficial for our community. K through 12, it's been a great opportunity for us to align our programs. We get great feedback from our community at the junior high on the Pathways program, and that they really enjoy, the junior high kids really enjoy the opportunity to focus on interests that really translate to the high school, and has helped align our school in many, many ways. So that's it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that was well worth watching. That was
Yeah.
really well worth seeing that growth.
It's been 3 years in the making, so.
So fabulous. And you're ongoing, it's continuing. To know that, you know, they're collecting the right information too, and looking at, by that accumulating time, the number of kids who are taking AP courses and numbers of tests, and the pass rate are all good, but you know, just to be in an AP course, even if they never took the test, is a benefit for kids, is a great benefit. And you said it was 84%. I think an 84.9 is 85. I would say you have an 85%.
I agree, did the math.
Yeah.
One student is 0.68%, so I think it should be 85%.
Yeah, I do too. 85, there we go. So that's an 85 total students with pass rate. 85% is just remarkable to be able to do that in those AP courses, and they're sent out. It's not just teachers at the school saying, oh, he struggled, I'll give him an A. They're blind reads. And that, if you've ever done it, really have to have fortitude to be an AP reader. You do. So at any rate, tremendous. So I think if we're at that place that really, that we'd entertain a motion that just said that thank you, Providence South. You went through a 3-year provisional time, and I think it's because at that time there was still some IB folks who wanted to hang on to that IB program, but you've more than, from my perspective, more than proven that you were right, that to make this transition to AP and not continue the IB program at Providence South. But we need a motion that just permanently approves that amended charter
authorization for the AP program.
I'll make that motion, Chair, if I may.
All right, so motion from member Olson. Do I have a second to that motion? And a second from member Cisneros. Do I have any discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion that will make this a permanent, this amendment permanent, say aye. Aye, and that's unanimous approval. Not only do we approve that amendment, but approve the work that you're doing. We commend you. That's your hard work. That's your school's hard work, your team's hard work. And the benefit is to all of those kids to attend Provincetown. We just really thank you and approve that. So I'll tell you all the things I talked about you earlier another time.
Hey, and can I just have a quick shout out for Marie? She was such a great resource behind the scenes. She is phenomenal. We just love working with her. I just wanted to give her some kudos for all the work she does. So
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for taking the time to do that. We always agree with that too. So thank you. Well, go forward, Provincetown. Thank you so much. We love what you're doing.
thanks.
Thank you.
And it's a good school to visit if you haven't ever. It's a great school to visit. So if ever you say, I want to go visit a school, give Nate a call. It's a great school.
Always
visit.
welcome. All right. Thank you.
A beautiful western view out of their big windows. Yeah. So, all right, we are just a little bit behind, but I think we can take, you can do that election quickly and we can adjourn.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. And I want to say thank you to all of you. As if you recall, last meeting, we had heard from Chair Bowles that was going to be resigning. And so with that prompted us to have elections, which we would normally have at this time of the year, but just a little bit of an unexpected shift. With that, we opened up the call. We only, and as in our board packet, we discussed we had 2 nominations come forward. One for myself as to move into the chair role, and one for member Olson as vice chair. And we had no other nominations, and so I'm taking that as just there was no other folks from our board that were interested in those positions. So at this point, I would like to make a motion, or sorry, well, I call for a motion. I don't know if I prefer not to make it because I'm one of the candidates or one of the individuals. Go ahead, please.
And maybe effective immediately.
Oh, yes, effective
Okay.
immediately.
Whoever thinks about the motion.
Just a question. Can we make one motion with both then, or is it more appropriate to make 2 separate motions?
You can, I think you can. And it's one, and it's a vote just by acclamation that you.
Okay.
Accept those nominations. I think you can do it as.
I'm
Great.
happy to make the motion. So I would motion that we vote to approve the nomination of Stephanie Spiker as board chair. And member Eric Olson as board vice chair, effective immediately.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? For a vote of this nature, is it important to do an individual? Or I think we're okay. Okay, I'm seeing Royce giving me. Thank you.
Application is part of Robert's rules.
Great, so great. All right, so I think all those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
Great. Okay, motion passes and thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
May I move into the last part of the meeting as chair? So I guess with that,
You're the chair.
well, oh gosh. Oh. So with that, I want to begin by, yes, please.
Chair, this recorded and like live streamed to YouTube, or you want me to end it and then?
I'm okay with it being live streamed. I think this is it's beautiful, I think, and so, but thank you for checking in on that. I just want to begin by saying that for me, change is difficult, especially when it's unexpected. It's also incredibly humbling to be part of an organization and a group of people that I feel are incredibly. Thank you. Thanks, Bryce. Are just incredibly passionate, powerful, wise, and really committed to the work of charter schools within the state. To say I'm humbled and frankly a little nervous to step into this role would be an understatement. Just due to the shoes of the people that I am following after. I stepped onto the board about 4 years ago with Chair Tonks, and I was incredibly moved by her power, her wisdom, and her mentorship. And I felt very similarly about Member Phillips, and of course for you, Chair Bowles. Any space that I am in where I discuss my work and I talk about that I have an opportunity to work with Brian Bowles. Oh, I know. What? Oh, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you, and they're beautiful stories. There's again stories of passion, of compassion, of wisdom, insight, and impact. And when I think about all of us and the work that we do on this board, it is impactful work. And it is important that we are working with leaders that we trust and that we value, and that help us do our jobs so well and effectively. And again, I'm honored and humbled to be stepping into this space with all of you. And more importantly, I want to celebrate you, Brian, for what you have given to the charter world, to education. I know you've been a little elusive about what's happening next on your path, but please know that's exactly you're like, I don't know either. But please know that you are never far from us, and we hope that we can always ring on you, phone a friend, pop an email, and just know that your work is impactful beyond our words, beyond years, and beyond generations. That is a gift I would hope that all of us have a chance to partake in. So with that, we just have a small gift. I don't a token of our appreciation.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yes, well, of course. Yeah. So staff had done some research and found out that you are a wreath lover. And oh, awesome, great.
Paul asked me, I had a bird who built a wreath in my nest in my wreath last year.
So here is just I know I'm like, yeah, I'm losing my words at the moment. We picked a lavender wreath. This is from the store that you use. Paul, could you remind me of the name of that? Modern Display. So there is a pretty nice gift card in here as well for you to pick another wreath for your door. This one, again, you can see it's a lavender, but this will be eternal because it's not necessarily real at this moment, but you can buy a real. With that being said, I think actually I like that. It's a lavender wreath which symbolizes peace, tranquility, calmness, and I think that's what you bring. And the internal nature of this, I hope that you will always think of us, and we're so grateful for you, Brian.
Thank you.
Just want to say
Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. That's very fun.
Staff, I know, I have to make it really short because I'm getting really choked up, just your leadership. And the two words that we think of often is just grace and wisdom. And you have so much love, so much grace that you bring. And then the wisdom that you bring to the board and to the administration is so much. And so we love you, and we appreciate what you have done and will continue to do. I do have like weird technology things coming up here. I have somebody that wants to call in quick. And then I think we have to cast something too. So like if there are other board members, I had somebody text me saying that they gotta say something to you. So from staff, we see your grace, we see your wisdom, and it's back at you, and we love you too.
Thank you. Such a.
And then if there's anyone else prior to this phone call and weird technology things.
Yeah, that's nice of you. And I want to just say, good luck, those of you going to the A game, that is gonna be exciting. I'll be looking forward to hearing how that goes and potential awards from that, and as you continue along, it's gonna be exciting. A lot of good things happening,
Is there anyone else?
really good things.
We're waiting, I remember, I had early in my career, I had a mentor say to me, Stephanie, it's really important that you think about as you continue on your path. We always wanna, when you leave, you wanna know that you've made it better after you left, and there is no doubt
That's nice.
of your legacy, right?
That's nice.
Across, not just here, but I'm sure throughout the entire state and
You never know, but I can tell you the right people to talk to, would say the opposite of what you. But it's kind of, I have, like, if any of you watch NCIS, Gibbs has a list of rules. I have a list of rules. One of mine is leave the campground better than you found it, and
Yes.
ride for the brand, and so is another one. So, you ride for this brand as you have it, and then you try to leave the campground better than you found it.
So
Yeah.
true.
Anyone else speaking otherwise?
I would like to, so, Ryan, I think I've shared this with you, but I'd love to share it with the group. I started out as a new teacher in David School District when you were the superintendent.
Yeah.
And when you spoke to new teachers, you made a comment, and it's a statement that was parents don't parents send us the best children they've got. They don't keep the good ones home.
Yeah.
And as a new
That's
teacher,
right.
I captured that nugget and wrote it down and thought, like, this is important. I need to keep this in mind throughout my career. And this note card with your name on it as my superintendent at the time went with me to 2 different classrooms, stayed on my bulletin board, has been with me in 3 different offices and has been on my bulletin board. And when I came to this charter board and recognized that I had the chance to serve with you and learn from you, I just immediately was humbled and felt a great sense of being blessed. And I have felt that throughout our time together. And that you didn't even know that you were like traveling with me from place to place. And continue to travel with me. And I'm just so fortunate to know you and to now have a collection of these nuggets that will stay with me for life. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Well said. Thank you so much. Thank you.
This individual, I couldn't connect, technology issues, and I think Amber might even try to connect the person to or whatever, but Cindy and Cindy Phillips, who served along next to you for many years.
Yeah.
And then Kim Frank, both are just, they couldn't be here today. And they just are talking about how grateful they are. If you could take a minute to please make sure to let him know.
Oh, that's.
When you announced your retirement from the board, this is from Kim Frank, you mentioned that you were looking forward to adding to the colors of the tapestry of your life. I have had the great privilege of watching you in your board meetings and on Capitol Hill with your students. The thread that stands out to me is your kindness and that you treat people with respect, even those with whom you disagree. We need more brighter, stronger threads in this world like yours. You've woven kindness and respect into everyday actions. Your thread stands out, steady, golden, and full of grace. Your example has added beauty and strength to the life of those around you in truly lasting ways. Thank you for being a thread of warmth, integrity, and wisdom in the fabric of our charter school community. I had all these people texting me and calling, and they want to, I know we might broadcast another one yet that's trying, but Cindy Phillips said too, I would also like to thank Chair Bowles for his service on the State Charter School Board and for his lifetime of service to education. He loves people, he loves students, and he shares with many of us the firm belief in the possibility of education to transform lives. Chair Bowles has been a mentor to me. He has taught me that the best leaders create leaders, and they take joy in their accomplishments as though they were their own. He taught me that the best leaders remove their own egos from decisions and considerations and act in the best interest of others. Brian, your instincts and judgment are unmatched. Your recipe includes heart, mind, and soul, and the result is one of warm and inviting gourmet dinners.
Hey.
You have earned the immense respect, trust, and love that we all have for you. All of you count you as a dear friend, one whose impression we're glad to say will always be in our hearts and in our minds. And then, again, technology, I'm getting all these things in and stuff like that. Amber, you were gonna try to pull up somebody that's trying to connect here as well. It may not be live, Amber, I think, but this is definitely somebody that also wanted to thank you. So I'm hoping, Amber, you're pulling it.
Yes, I am trying.
Okay.
I have her on a really
I just
fun
gotta get rid of my task.
show.
You know.
No, who's gonna, I don't know, like, I'm thinking like of an old show when we were kids.
Yeah.
And all the people from your life
Oh,
show up in your life.
This is your life. This is your life. That's right. That's so nice. Thank you.
I'm just trying to get to the share button, which is getting covered by my taskbar, and then I'm looking for.
You're okay. This, we can all wait. I know they've been persistent in trying to communicate a message to Chair Bowles and to all of us, so we can be patient.
Are there any other, oh, please, I was gonna say, any other comments from,
Yeah,
please,
please.
please.
I'm from the field, from the schools. I just wanted to say that we have been interacting with the chair balls for years, and the only words that come into my mind are very kind, very caring, and very respectful, and genuine and great human beings. So I just want to
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Can I share too?
Please.
This was so fun for me. Last night, I grabbed my daughter and said, "Come with me to the store." And so we were walking in and she said, "What are we getting?" And I said, "Oh, we have to get a card." And she said, "What are we getting a card for?" And I said, "Oh, it's for Chair Bowles. It's his last board meeting." And she stopped, dead in the way in the store and said, "Chair Bowles is leaving?" Really surprised. And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Does that, like kind of surprised that would, stop her in her tracks." And she said, "I can't believe that. Like, where's Chair Bowles going?" She had all these questions. And I said, "Why does that even matter?" She goes, "Well, I'm so glad I got to meet him in January." And she said, "Mom, he has helped you be such a better person." And it was so sweet because
Sweetest.
as I asked her and I said, like, "What do you mean?" And it was fun to just hear from her perspective, the way that your example and the things that I've learned from you that I didn't even realize as I would come home and I would just talk about things at work or, meetings that we've had, that then she was absorbing and also learning. And she could point to, "Oh, you had this conversation or this happened," or, and just things that she was picking up on as well. And so, already, loved you, respected you, had so much that I learned, but it just added another layer. Thank you for the example that you ended up being, even for my children, that I hadn't even realized you were being. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're able to connect with this too. And so really wanted to say something to you. So you hit play and
He's been patient.
Hi, I'm Governor Cox. Today, I'd like to recognize Dr. W. Brian Bowles for his incredible work in education. Few have had an impact as wide-reaching or as enduring as Dr. Bowles. With over 50 years of service in education, Dr. Bowles has left a powerful legacy, first as a classroom teacher, then as a district superintendent, and now as chair of the Utah State Charter School Board. Under his leadership, the State Charter School Board has supported over 130 public charter schools that serve more than 78,000 Utah students. He's helped Utah's charter school system grow with purpose and responsibility, ensuring that it remains focused on what matters most: quality education for every child. Dr. Bowles has been instrumental in mentoring the next generation of scholars. Thank you, Dr. Bowles, for your unwavering commitment to Utah students.
Look what I'm gonna do. I'm not dying.
It's like a rebirth.
That was
quite a eulogy.
Record all of that and just say when I go, to my funeral house. Thank you all so much. I appreciate all of you and think of you and all of I hadn't intended to leave, but all the dates, charter dates are still in my calendar. So every time that comes up, I'll be thinking of you and know that you're meeting and making good decisions on behalf of kids and doing work that needs to be done. So thank you. And sometimes the work we do is, well, our intent is to do really good things for families and children. And we're in a place that we are doing that and will continue to do, and need to keep thinking about how we could even do more of it and how we can do it even better. And evidence of that was through this whole meeting today. And sometimes it'd be people who push back at us and don't agree, but just stay focused on what needs to be done and don't be pulled off track by those little naysayers. Just stay focused on the good work that you're doing. Everybody's on a good path. Appreciate each of your individual strengths that you bring here, and it's important that you continue to do that. And the nice thing is we all like each other, even if we disagree with one another, and we need to disagree because we come up with better decisions that way. So thank you all for that. I learned a lot from all of you and will take that with me. So I appreciate it. Okay.
Well, with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Can I get a picture?